everyone. The hour of 7 o'clock having occurred about a minute ago. We are short one of our board members, but we'll go ahead and start because we do have a quorum, and we'll let board member come and jump in when he's ready. So I want to let you guys know, I'm calling the September 11th, 2023 Mendocino Historical Review Board meeting to order. I'm Chair Ian Roth, and I've got a bunch of wonderful board members with me to help us work through our fun evening tonight, which we have a full house, which is great. So thank you all for showing up. Just a little bit of information. We came to meet at 4 o'clock this afternoon in the field. We reviewed 3 different items, item 8A, 9B, and 9C, which were assigned the Mendocino Hotel and Capitol sites for those that are always often happening in advance of the meeting. They're open to the public. We do a preview with the planners and the applicants so we get a sense as to what the item is. So we adjourned at 5:20, 5:15. And so here we are re-adjourning this meeting at the community center to do our full agenda this evening. So, Planner Jesse Wallman, can you please conduct roll call?
Yes, Chair Roth. Planner Jesse Wallman and Chair Roth, are you present?
Present.
Madrigal, here. And Sanders.
Here.
And Holm, Kepler.
Here.
And Bixby. Not yet.
Not yet.
And we'll make a mention
When he arrives.
Please mark
Okay, great. And just for the record, I would like to state that we have Mark Kaiser, planner for Mendocino County Planning, is presenting today. Myself, Jesse Waldman, the director for Mendocino County Planning and Building Services, Julia Krog, and we do have Gretchen McLaughlin, we're for the code enforcement division.
Welcome, board member. Present.
And if she is, has arrived at 7:02, perfect.
Okay. Determination of legal notice. Was it proper notice been established for the meeting?
Yes, proper notice has been achieved.
Item number 4, approval of minutes. These are the July 10th, 2023 minutes. Do we have any corrections, concerns?
Yeah, I have a question.
Please.
Somewhere here, it says that I supported a 2-year extension. And I couldn't remember doing that, and I went back and looked at YouTube. And what I actually said was I supported an extension. And I assumed it would be tense up in the winter and down in the summer, because I believe at that point that was the limit of our authority. And that's
Conditions of approval?
Yeah, conditions of approval. So that may change during the course of this meeting, but the minutes are not quite what I said.
So would you like it, this would be on page 4,
Yeah.
where the review board discussion, second paragraph from the bottom, where it says, review board member Sanders stated he is concerned with seating, has read all submitted comments, understands both perspectives of the public and the applicant. He concluded that he supports the request.
No, an extension. An extension is the word I want. And then you need to
So
add-
for an extension,
And
for,
I assumed that it would be tense down in the summer, not in the winter, because I believe that was the only, that was the limit of our, what we would do.
So possibly a temporary seasonal tent.
Yes.
So you supported the request for an extension under the conditions of the original permit?
Yes. And I believe that may change during the course of the discussion, but
That was that discussion?
that was that discussion, yeah.
Okay, so I had a comment on the same page. This is paragraph 4, review board discussions. It is a record of what I was supposed to have said. I'd like to replace the entire paragraph, and I've submitted that to the staff. I don't know, do you want me to read it out?
Yes, please.
Okay. Review board member Kepler argued as he read the permit, which the review board had granted, the permit was only effective during the existence of a public health order Since such an order was no longer in effect, he did not believe that the board could extend the permit. In addition, he noted that county staff had suggested that the tents may be in violation of the maximum lot coverage requirements of the county code, which is something that the board had no authority over. County staff had also stated that in the past, the county had not counted temporary tents toward lot coverage, temporary being defined as less than 180 days. At this point, Member Kapler felt that the board appeared to be limited to granting a temporary permit for the Patterson Club tent for 180 days in view of the lot coverage issue. He also believed that the board needed to hear from the MCCSD regarding the increased water use issue before making any decisions.
Thank you. That was submitted for the record.
Yes.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah, I've got a couple too. Same page. So I appreciate the Shari Roth, but I'm just chair. It's in the second paragraph.
Thank you.
That's all right. And I'm not quite sure how to wordsmith this, but my recollection was that we started looking, once it goes down to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th paragraph. And this is Dr. Krog stated that staff will require consult, blah, blah, blah. It could be somewhat stated, and I can work with you afterwards for perfect verbiage, but I think we kind of took a straw poll, and we realized it was going to be a 2-2, which is a denial of application because you need a majority. And then I had asked the applicant on this application if they would like to take the denial without a majority or have it continued to have staff work with county council to review the conditions and how they might be put into the equation.
So my suggestion would be, let's go ahead and I would recommend that we continue the minutes then and give staff a chance to review this.
That's fine.
And that way we can have language presented to the full board at your next
Perfect.
meeting.
And if you have any questions about what I just did, you know how to get hold of me.
If we could have a motion to continue that then.
Yeah, I'll make the motion to continue the minutes into the next meeting from the meeting of July 10th. Is there a second?
I'll say.
All in favor, signify with the local voice.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. There we go. Okay. Starting into the meat of this whole thing. So, agenda item 5 is correspondence, and we need to make clear that this is about any correspondence that has not been received, that's it. Any correspondence that been received for items not on the posted agenda. So, Planner Holman, what do we have?
Moment here.
And
There
if you can
is-
do a summary as opposed to reading all the context, because it has been published on the internet
Very good.
and by paper.
Okay. So prior to the agenda being posted and available to the public, our office, Planning and Building Services, did receive comments under correspondence from Gare Andres, sorry for the last name, from Mendoza and from Winslow of Good Life Cafe and Bakery, and those were all posted online. And then after the agenda was posted, we received additional comments that were also posted on our website. Some we even received today. And majority of the comments were in support of continuing the use of temporary tents within the town of Mendocino. These comments were submitted to both NHRB and the Board of Supervisors. And overall, there have been, with the exception of 2, there have been 8 public comments that are all in your packets presented to you today, and they've all been posted online
Thank you.
with majority of support.
Thank you. Please keep the this down. Thank you.
Can I interrupt?
No,
I admit I have hearing aids.
okay, we have time for public
No,
comment.
listen to me.
No, I'm sorry, you're not running this meeting. You will have time for public comment, this is not the
No,
time.
address the crowd, not each other, okay? Just do that. I mean, I admit I have hearing aids and it's difficult, but the way that you're talking to each other rather than the crowd
Understood, thank you.
is a fault.
Understood, thank you.
Thank you.
And I wish we
I'm
had,
sorry I
that's
interrupted.
right. I wish we had better acoustics, and I'll try, we also have a little bit of hearing issues on the board as well, so
All right,
we'll try to enunciate and be focused.
thank you.
You bet. Agenda item number 5 is report from the chair, being myself. I have 2 items. The first is I would like to take item 11A, which is our code enforcement report. And I would like to bring it in front of after our consent calendar, so we can get our county staff, code enforcement officer to be able to share her information and not have to enjoy the entire meeting. So, and the second is to address the elephant in the room. On our agenda this evening, we have a specific application, which is for Patterson's Pub. Tonight, we are not addressing tents in the town of Mendocino. So, the public expression, if you want to talk to the application for Patterson's Pub, please do that under that item and not under public expression. Okay? And then, Mr. Zimmer, please wait. I know a lot of you are here for tents in the village or the town. And I'm sure you all know, but I'll state for the record that tomorrow the Board of Supervisors is holding a meeting at St. Anthony's Catholic Church. It starts at 9 o'clock in the morning, and the issue of tents in Mendocino is on their agenda. So if you have something to say tonight about that broadly, that is under the public expression, which is going to be the next item. I'm going to remind you to keep your comments to 3 minutes per person. And that if you have something to say here about that, you probably have something to say tomorrow about it. So you can go to it in person, you can watch it on the YouTube channel. But please be considerate. I don't want to have crosstalk, and I don't want to throw anyone out, but I'm not going to have a circus here. So thank you.
Thank you. That was very good. Thank you.
You're welcome. And just for the record, can you please state your name?
Chuck Hathaway.
Thank you. Okay, so now we are on to agenda item number 7, public expression. The review board welcomes participation. Comments shall be limited to 3 minutes per person, and staff will be timing that. This is Julia Krog, she's our Director of Planning and Building Services. Please respect her time and our time, and your neighbor's time. And this is so that everyone might be heard. Public expression items are limited to matters under jurisdiction of the review board that are not on today's meeting agenda, and items that were not previously confirmed by the review board. So, Planner Wallman, can you please tell us about emails that came in under public expression?
Thank you, Senator Wolfman. So as I stated, with respect to correspondence that we did receive prior to the agenda being posted, as well as additional comments, those 10 that have come in, the majority of them did show support. There is another item that came in, and it was from the League of Women's Voters, and that is also included in your packet. And for the record, it is an invitation to a meeting to meet and greet your local officials on Friday, September 22nd, from 5 to 7 p.m. at the Casper Community Center, located in North Casper. This is available, it's in your packets for you to be invited and be aware of that.
And that is open to the public as well? Or is it by invitation only?
It does say this event is free and open to the public.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Does that conclude your report?
It does not say which local officials will be in attendance. And so, if you have further questions, I believe that you could contact the League of Women Voters. That is a summary of the public expressions.
Thank you.
With one more, there were some letters submitted by hand today previous to the beginning of this meeting. And those letters, they asked to speak, they'll read the letters and they'll be sensitive of time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brings us to our consent calendar. We have one item on the consent calendar.
Or you might want to call for public expression. Sorry.
I'm sorry. Heard the elbow. So, again, anyone who wishes to address the board for items not on the agenda, please state your, thank you, sir. When you want to speak, raise your hand. I'll call on you, stand at the podium and state your name for the record.
Sure.
And please address the board and not the audience.
I will.
Thank you.
My name is Danik Murphy. Good evening. I'm an elected member of the Mendocino City Community Services District Board, also the chair of that board. In my comments, I will speak as an individual member of this community, and may also refer to adopted policies and ordinances of the MCCSD. Personally, I support the tents and generally choose to dine outside. I feel safer and the food is always good in this town, whether it's inside or out. I support the one-year moratorium on tent enforcement. These businesses are a valued and important part of our community, creating good jobs, a place for people to gather, and they contribute to the economic vitality of our town. MCCSD also plays a critical part in the town's economic survival. The district works hard to protect shared groundwater and secure access to truck water during times of emergency. In addition, the district manages and maintains our aging sanitary sewer system, so our toilets flush, and what goes down the drain is taken care of. The tents will hopefully be addressed in part tomorrow. But there are other non-tent issues that have not been part of the conversation, and they need to be. The MCCSD requires anyone who creates a change in use, meaning in this case expanded dining space, to take steps, meet certain standards, and pay for increased water and sewer demand. To date, only one restaurant has come down to the office to begin this conversation. I encourage the businesses in town to begin that process soon. Expanded dining space is great, but the businesses need to apply, receive a permit, and pay their fair share of costs associated with increased water and sewer demand. This is a well-established cost of doing business. The California Division of Drinking Water contacted most, if not all, of the businesses in town regarding permitting of public water systems. State law requires any enterprise serving water to the public must meet certain safety standards. The state will likely require businesses to comply in the coming months. The question of tents and increased water and sewer demand could be moot if state requirements are not met. I personally do not want restaurant owners to incur costs meeting MCCSD standards before it is clear that they will be licensed by the state. So beyond the tent issue, there are water and sewer issues that need to be addressed, and we need to come together to find solutions as a community. It will take time and cost money. Assuming the one-year moratorium is improved, we have a year to figure this out. MCCSD will have a board meeting likely on September 25th, likely in the same building, where you can hear more and continue the conversation with MCCSD. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, my name is Tom Tesla. I'm just a resident, and I'm also a patron of the restaurants in town, and I'm also in favor of the tents, but we can get into that later. I'd like to counter what I just heard from the sewer district. They are a sewer district. They don't supply water to anyone. These are private wells, and they have no authority to regulate groundwater in this area. It's been litigated, it's been enforced, they've lost. It's cost us many thousands of dollars. So for them to stick their noses in again here, trying to get involved with tents is ridiculous. Any extra tables is a negligible amount of water added to their sewer system. The district should be thanking them for providing that extra water at their expense. Thank you.
If I may, through the
Yes.
chair, could we have Tom say his last name?
The gentleman who was just here.
Oh, I'm sorry, Tetzlaff. Tom Edward Tom Zebra Louis Alfred Frank.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to address the board on our public expression? Yes. Please come forward, state your name. Yes.
Yep. Okay, I don't know whether I should use this. Thank you, board members. My name is Donna Bayless. We're farmers that started farming here in California in 1863. We
Just
have
wait, ma'am. Addressing the board.
okay, and not show them anything.
No, you can show them that you're addressing the board.
Okay. Anyway, we've been farming outside for 16 decades. And I want to just be real brief. Over the years, we've had to find ways to mitigate weather, circumstances, 9/11, you name it. We've all had it. Everybody in this room. It's really sad and challenging. What I did find is an option for us when we have public events that we have to have many people attend at our farm because we are an educational farm. And what we found were these options that I wanted to pass on to you. These are visuals. They are trellises, pergolas, and water-resistant corrugated panels that sandwich in between the arbors to keep them waterproof and weatherproof during inclement weather. And they work wonderfully for us. They're affordable. And this is basically, I borrowed this from a place up in Fort Bragg. This is the paneling that catches the rain and runs it off, and it's in between sandwich the framework. And I'm just giving this to you as an option for consideration. And I think that's all. Okay, thanks. Yay. Yeah. I don't know whether you guys could see this, but I presented it to you.
Could you pass it in?
Yeah. Actually, this might be easier.
Anyone else under public expression? Please come forward, state your name.
Good evening. My name is Russ Christoph, and I am a resident of the soon-to-become township of Barnum and Bailey. I saw a flyer in the post office, and as being an ex-English teacher, I felt compelled to correct the grammar. It says, please attend and support, because our tents provide comfortable outdoor dining, social distancing, jobs. Tents provide jobs. Okay, I'll get back on it. Seating for visitors and locals at the restaurants we have. They help local businesses thrive economically, which in turn makes Mendocino vibrant, viable, blah, blah, blah. I could be wrong, but it says in the purpose here, much of the unique character of the community rests with the style of architecture. Size, forms, materials, textures, and colors should be in general accord with the appearance of structures built in Mendocino prior to 1900. Required that construction be compatible with and not in disharmony with the architectural standards herein expressed. I don't have to explain that to anyone. Tents do not look good here. Tents would look fine if you had a special occasion.
This way, sir.
Yes?
Address the board, please.
Okay, as long as you're listening.
Not really.
Time out, you can hit the timer, okay? Sir,
Wait till I'm
sir,
done.
sir,
Sir,
I'm not gonna have this be a public forum that is gonna be crazy and shunning people, and ma'am, if you keep applauding after the people you support, I'm gonna ask you to leave. It's disrespectful.
I'll vote for him too.
I would appreciate if you would, it's very
If you
disruptive.
ask me nicely, I will not.
Please, refrain from your applause regardless of who's talking.
Okay,
Thank you,
you're welcome.
sir.
I doubt for a moment that these tents are really adding to businesses here. The businesses are doing just fine, except for COVID, which probably dictated that maybe a tent would be a good idea. However, tents should be up when they're needed and taken down when they're not. The Mac Hotel puts a tent up when people are getting married. It's a big job. When that wedding is over, they take it down. Because I wouldn't want to come down that street and see it all the time. It does not go with the way this town should look. If you want to keep it up for a short time, fine. COVID is over, essentially. There are some folks that are still very, very careful about it. I have a mother-in-law who's 96, but she doesn't live in town, so I'm not all that concerned. Because
Please.
Extend his time.
I don't need much more. I pretty much got the point over here. We don't have to worry about the shape of a roof. I saw that. Pretty minor. A roof is a roof. But this town has no place for tents up all the time. They're not needed. It doesn't make the patrons any more comfortable.
Continue, please.
It doesn't make them any more comfortable. They don't bring any more business. As long as you got the seating there, it's fine. We did have a restaurant here that had a tent, and they had propane heaters out, and they charged people $7 to eat and enjoy the heat. And it was slapped on their bill, and hopefully they paid. Most of these restaurants in this town, I don't patronize anymore, because what they've done, okay, fine, I'm going to extend it just a minute. They have fleeced the tourist who comes into town, because when the tourist is here, they'll pay anything. They don't know if there's anywhere else to eat. They don't give any discounts to locals. We have been forgotten. And you know what? Locals don't forget.
How long have you lived here?
Excuse me, I'm not gonna tolerate this, okay? So if you want to talk, you can go outside. It's disrespectful. Thank you. Is there anyone else interested in talking under public expression? Please come forward, state your name for the record.
My name is Simone Posaias. I'd like to read a letter from Stephanie Simonich, who cannot be here tonight. And it says, I've been the property owner and resident of Mendocino Village for nearly 12 years. When we moved here, I was so proud to live in a town that valued history and the environment. It seems that those values are currently under fire. I know you do not live in the village, addressing the restaurant owners, but close enough to notice the large increase in traffic, parking woes, trash, and noise, generated in some part by the increased foot traffic generated by the newer, larger tents. I am also aware that the restaurant owners who are making the most noise also do not live in the village. They merely make their money here. I hear increasing arguments about the jobs that they provide. But are minimum wage jobs with tips the best we can do? Do the jobs provide benefits necessary to live in our state today? The restaurants were doing a great business prior to COVID, even without tents. But mostly, are we so short-sighted that we do not remember the multi-year drought that just ended earlier this year? Our limited water and aquifers are finite resources. They are endangered by the restaurants serving an increasing number of tourists. There's no end in sight. That was 3 minutes.
No, that was my timers.
The MCSD MCCSD has recently given away our water and the governance of our water to the MUSD, also not a hopeful sign for the residents in the 1 mile square village. I know you need to balance the county budget, but please not at the expense of the few of us who still live here full time. We are those who volunteer to keep the library running, plant and maintain the post office gardens, work at the music festival, film festival, pick up the excess trash in our village, etc., etc. And as a postscript myself, I think that the only eatery that was closed during this COVID event was Fiddleheads, owned by Chris Castleman. And Chris Castleman spurned the COVID regulations. Consequently, his lease was not renewed by the owner of that building. And also, by the way, Mr. Castleman was asked to leave the Mendocino Volunteer Fire Department, of which he was a member, because of his behavior regarding COVID rules. That's it.
Anyone else want to speak during public discussion? Please, state your name for the record, please.
My name is Bill Zimmer. I've lived here forever. First, I'd like to clear the air about my reported opposition to all tents, which I've heard repeatedly. I fully support tents for special events like the music festival and the McCallum House weddings. I fully believe the decision to allow restaurant tents for the duration of the pandemic was the right call, as well as a very generous PPP funding in the form of forgivable loans that helped make that possible. I would also fully support a similar decision in the event of the pandemic crisis reemerges. Otherwise, I do not support permanent tents in any form because they do not conform to MHRD standards. I condemn efforts to extend their permanency going forward because there are imminent dangers with all to the benefit of a very few who would have us subscribe to George Orwell's famous conclusion to his novel Animal Farm, that all animals are created equal, but some are more equal than others. While I'm at it, I want to put the alleged mass employment myth to rest. I talk to the owners of Frankie's restaurant routinely. They tell me that they have had to cut back on serving meals outside for lack of staff to serve more tables, that this is the employment reality in the restaurant business, and that there is a degree of coordination between restaurants in Mendocino in order that all may partake from the limited pool of workers. So stoking fears of unemployment is a classic red herring, a diversion. Secondly, and more to the point, tents translated into more meals served, dishes washed, toilets flushed, and profits for restaurants. Soon after people who were freaked out about traveling, particularly to Europe, realized they could relax and spend money in Carmel, Napa, Tahoe, Hawaii, or Mendocino in relative safety. Restaurants in town reaped record profits during the pandemic, contrary to the alternative facts pushed out to the media by one restaurant owner, alleging that, quote, many restaurants, unquote, had closed, leaving, quote, a handful of surviving restaurants, quote, that would be, quote, driven to extinction, quote, without their, quote, unobtrusive, unquote, tents, despite the embarrassing real fact that all of them are doing just fine without tents prior to the pandemic.
You have access to
Mr.
my
Yankee,
book?
please, can you pause here? Mr. Zimmer, if you start addressing the audience, I'm going to ask you to leave.
I'm not addressing it.
You keep turning your head and talking to them. You're talking to the board. This is the board here, okay? So I don't need you out throwing things over to the audience.
I don't believe I was talking about it.
We don't need comments from the peanut gallery
Please.
either.
Okay, so, where was I? Claims of restaurant owners that they are not using as much water as previously, or very little more than this year, or not using their full allotment, fly in the face of both common sense and the facts. The fact is, the Mendocino CCSD removed extraordinary amounts of waterborne grease from sewer lines running down Lansing Street and Catherine Street this very year, precisely the streets where the restaurants with tents at issue are located. The fact that they may not have exceeded the water allotment fails to mention that highly realistic. That's it?
Yes. 3 minutes, what everyone gets.
Okay.
But, Mr. Zimmer, we received your written correspondence and we'll share that with the board as well.
Okay.
Make copies and share that with them.
Okay. I guess I should have practiced.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience wishing to speak under public expression? Please come forward.
My name is Ted Elizabeth, and I own Good Life Cafe. And this is not in regards to Tony's tent, this is in regards to tents only. And I really just wanted to rebut a couple of things that I've heard tonight. For starters, the grease issue. We've got grease traps, we were making biodiesel with our oil. We hire professional plumbers to come and make sure that there is no grease going into our sewage.
We've been talking about tents for more than 10 minutes. Public expression is reserved for items that are not on the agenda or subsequent agendas. I believe tents are going to be on a subsequent agenda, if not on tonight's agenda. So I don't know why.
It's not on tonight's agenda, but thank you.
Patterson's is on.
Excuse me, that's a specific application.
Okay.
Sir, you're out of order, please.
Well, what about the 10 minutes? What about the 10 minutes? It says right here, public expression, 10 minutes on an item. I've been listening to 10 since I got here at 7:15.
Well, thank you, and you can listen a little longer, okay?
Okay.
Thank you. Please proceed.
We're not asking for keeping tents forever, we're asking just to let us keep what we've got built for the past 3 years through COVID until you guys decide what we can have instead. This lovely woman who had brought some beautiful examples, we're fine with that. Tell us what we can do, we'll hire the architect, they'll draw the plans that you will approve, we will do that, happily. We don't necessarily want the tents like that, but don't make us take them down before we have a plan, because then we actually will have to, through the winter, lay people off. There's no guarantees that winter we will have people wanting to eat under an umbrella without any kind of protection. Through the summer without any kind of protection. I'm really sorry if people don't think that it provided jobs, but for absolutely most of the restaurants that do have tents, it absolutely did. Outdoor dining has become a very popular thing, as seen on many of the polls that you guys have heard and seen the letters. I can tell you that we have saved as much. We have gotten a double-sized dishwasher to do half of the water with double the dishes. We have switched to trays with paper liners so we don't have to wash those. We just sanitize them with the sanitizing cloth. We have done every single thing to keep water at the minimum of use, and we have made every effort to do compostable, biodegradable, to go everything, wooden cutlery. I grew up here. I have lived on the Mendocino coast since 1977. This is my town also, and I support 30 families. Who am I going to lay off if I reduce my restaurant to half the size? There are a few people in this town who don't want to be this busy. We're not the ones making Mendocino popular. It's the fresh air, it's the lack of international traveling and the cost of gas that's making the Bay Area and everybody else love it here. And hallelujah, we're supporting our families. Now that cannabis, logging, and just about everything else is dead, we have tourism. And you want to shut it down because you have enough money and you live in this cute little Victorian town that had tents in the 1800s? Thank you very much. Go for it. Go ahead and try it and see what the community does.
Right on, Debbie.
Anyone else under public expression? Please come forward, say your name.
Patterson's Club in Mendocino, and I just wanted to touch base again on some of the comments that were made in regards to the grease and the water. We have our grease picked up, and I have all the sheets. We have a container, it's recycled and picked up regularly. As soon as it gets full, we come and pick it up. We do not put any grease through our sewer. I have water reports. We've been keeping track of water since 2001, and we have reports of all our water meter readings since the beginning. And our water has increased no more than 100 gallons a month for the last 3 years. So, and I have all the documentation, so proof of that, if anybody needs it, you can just ask. Okay? That's all I have to say.
Please do silence your cell phones while you're here. Is there anyone else wishing to speak under public expression? Please state your name.
Monica Jurczynski, Jurczynys. I work at Patterson's, and I just wanted to just make a little comment on some of the things that have been said. I've also lived here since 1987, and have worked in this town since then. Then Mendocino Hotel for years, and Patterson's for years. And I just want to say that when I hear comments of people that say, I moved here 12 years ago and I like this town the way it is, I get it. But people come here, they've already got theirs, they buy a home, they're retired, they've got investments. Not everybody does. A lot of us work for a living, and I can tell you just from Patterson's itself that they employ way more people than we ever employed before the pandemic. We used to have a skeleton crew and we could manage it. It used to just be, people would walk, it was like sardines crammed into the room. And it was so tight and everybody would, now it's nice and distanced, and we have all these retirees that come in for lunch on a regular basis. They like to sit outside, they feel safer out there. They come in every day, some of them, for lunch, and they love it. And I think that the amount of time and effort that people like Teddy and people like Tony have put into putting this all together and keeping us all employed, and it's just amazing. And I know that everybody has their opinion, but I just think that I'm not a public speaker, but I just wanted you to know that we hope that you'll take all this into consideration when you make your decisions, not just what people that have money and don't care about the people that are actually earning a living in town, that also live here, how we feel. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else under public expression? Seeing that, I will close that. I will make a comment. We all either live here or do business here or visit here. We see each other on a regular basis. I hope that we can respect each other today and tomorrow. And the 5 people sitting in front of you are bearing the brunt of this today. And I know Supervisor Ted Williams is in the back and he gets to share it tomorrow. So I hope you guys are respectful to the Board of Supervisors and for the rest of us for this evening. And what I'd like to say is that as the MHRB, Historic Review Board, I would like to see it that we are the last stop on the permitting process. I personally, and I think I speak to the rest of my board members, don't want to see an application that hasn't been vetted with all the other regulations until it's done. So, that being said, I thank you all for your time and patience, and we're going to move to our next item, which is the consent calendar, item number 8. It's case MHRB 2023-0009. It is for a sign on 45121 Ukiah Street for home decor. Consent calendar, I'm going to ask if there's anyone who wishes to talk to this from the public. And procedurally, once we finish that, I'll ask the board if anyone wants to remove it from the consent calendar, otherwise we'll take a vote on it, up or down, and we'll move to our next one. So is there anyone from the public wishing to speak to this item?
I'm going to recuse myself
Oh,
because
yeah.
I live less than 50 feet away from the.
And we'll take about a minute max. If we can take our conversations outside, that'd be great.
Hello, Russ. Okay, Russ.
In the back, please.
Thank you.
All right. Is there anyone from the public wishing wishing to speak on the sign for home decor? Seeing none, is there anyone from the board wishing to pull this item on consent? Do I have a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve. I'll second the motion.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Consent calendar is approved. I will be right back on this. Board member Mitchell. We'll go to code enforcement. All right. We are now on item number 11A, and we have Gretchen Glothlin, our acting code enforcement manager. Can you please present us with your report?
And if I could just make one correction, just the writing of that report, Gretchen is actually your code enforcement manager. It's no longer me.
Congratulations. I hope you wanted it.
Of course. Okay, good evening, board. Gretchen McLaughlin, Code Enforcement Manager with Planning and Building Services. Tonight I'm going to provide you an updated Code Enforcement Town of Mendocino activity report. That basically is since the last meeting that you guys held that we attended, which was on June 12, 2023. I've been kind of using a very specific format to kind of track everything that's happened in 2022 and 2023. And so I still have it broken up for that purpose. So to start off, I'm going to do a recap of 2022 complaints. In total, we received 34 complaints for the town of Mendocino. Since the last report, we have closed an additional 5 cases, including 2 complaints of fences in the 10,000 block of Easer Street and 45,000 block of Otto Street. One of the fences that was actually determined to be a replacement like for like of a 42-inch existing fence, so it was determined to not be a violation, as well as one on Otto Street, which actually was authorized by a previous MHRD permit in 2009. 2 complaints for exposed meters were also closed for the 45,000 block of Cotto Street and 45,000 block of Little Lake Street. They had since been covered up appropriately to meet the requirements of, I guess, the appearance for that exempted from the MHRD. It's the best way I could say it. And then 1 complaint was resolved regarding tree removal, which doesn't typically fall under the MHRB purview, but I just wanted to add that that was also addressed in the 45,000 block of Cobolo Street and was determined not to be a violation. For 2023, as a big update, we received a total of 86 complaints this year. As you can tell, there's a huge difference since the previous year. 13 of those cases were closed, including 8 of these cases as duplicates. And so I just want to reiterate that when I refer to duplicate complaints, it means that there was more than one of the same complaint for the same location. And due to the increased volume of complaints that we've received this year, 63 of them being since our last reporting, I kind of changed up the format of this report for the purposes of time, staff time. So on the second page of the report I provided you guys is basically a breakdown for each month, includes starting off with May of 2023, we received 40 sign violation complaints, and these particularly came down to things that were like no parking signs, just like the generic you can buy at a local store, no parking signs or no trespassing signs or something similar to that extent. So our plan is to try to address those in a very systematic, consistent, and efficient way. We're still identifying a very specific strategy to accomplish that, but our plan is to address those. One complaint was for parking and grading and was closed because it was determined to be in the Mendocino County Department of Transportation's right-of-way. Code enforcement does not have jurisdiction on those roadways, and they actually approved that setup for that location. One complaint was closed for travel trailer, which was removed upon request. One complaint was pertaining to a tent which was closed as a duplicate to an open complaint, which has a pending permit status review. There were 4 lights complaints which are also going to be addressed by code enforcement if we just haven't gotten to them yet. One for vacation rental, which was approved and determined to be approved and valid with a valid business license, and use was closed as unfounded. And another complaint was regarding setbacks to a pump house water tank, which was closed, and it was determined to meet exemptions. For June, we had 2 additional sign complaints. We're planning on addressing those as well. One lights complaint, which was consolidated with an existing one that's currently under investigation. 3 complaints for tents, 2 of which were closed as duplicates. And then 1 for building zoning violation not specific to MHRB, consolidated to an open case as well. And then finally, for July, we had 2 additional sign complaints, 1 additional tent complaint, all consolidated, and 4 complaints for building zoning violations that don't fall within MHRB. Totaling to 63 complaints received, 13 complaints closed, and 8 complaints closed as duplicates. As for the tents specifically, I believe we had 5 complaints in total. However, they pertain to 3 sites in total.
All the complaints all be from one person? So the tents, are they all from one person?
I would be able to disclose that
So
because,
can one person complain that many times?
yes.
Okay, I'm curious, I'll just curious.
Yes. Any other questions?
It's a sign.
This is more of a comment. Thank you for the report. I think it is handy for us to see this. But I think it's saying something that it more than doubled over last year. We're talking complaints on your neighbors. So I just want to put out I don't know what's going on, but between last year to this year, everyone needs to
Get them down.
I just want to put out a plug for talking to your neighbor about that, the parking sign and just because, that's a significant increase in a relatively short amount of time. So and I know you can't comment on that. I do imagine that if it was 1 person, you would let us know, or maybe you wouldn't.
It's very difficult for us to kind of, we have to be careful about how we disclose information because really complainant information is protected, it is confidential. And so oftentimes in code enforcement, certain circumstances can really relay who may have been the one to complain. So we gotta be really careful to not.
I get that, and I appreciate that we're, the MHRB, we don't have much enforcement body, so I appreciate that, that's how things come for us. If there's a significant violation, it's noticeable. The significant increase since last year.
So I guess if I may through the chair, if at least as a precursor to the public, generally speaking, no trespassing signs, no parking signs, unless if they are actually installed by the County of Mendocino DOT, they really shouldn't be up. And I know that parking is a challenge within the community here, but it is something that we do have to enforce because it does require approval through MHRB. So if you can be cognizant of that, that would be greatly appreciated.
Well, thank you, congratulations on your appointment. And we look forward to having you report back quarterly, so thank you for your time. ability to do so.
Thank you.
You got it. All right, we are transitioning to our public hearing items, and again, I'm going to ask everyone to be respectful of each other and the board. Please do not address the audience, please do not engage in discussions with the audience. The comments need to come this way, not that way. And just so that everyone understands, I will introduce the items, and then staff will make a presentation. The applicant will make a presentation, hopefully without being disturbed, any of them. And then we'll open up public hearing. And that again is to 3 minutes to state your comments and your position. Once your comments have been made, we'll close the public expression, bring it back to the board, we'll have a discussion. We will then be able to ask staff and applicant things. We're not going to reopen the public expression. So if you have something you're interested in, save it for after the meeting. And I will not tolerate shouting at people or disruptions or telling me how to do my job. Okay? This is volunteer. My wife thinks I'm crazy. Okay. Once we've been done with our discussion, we will then render a decision. So our first, that being said, our first application is 2020-0012 Patterson's, continued from July 10th, 2023. This is a request for a 2-year extension of the original application from 2020, which is for a Mendocino Historic Review Board permit request to temporarily assemble 2 tents for outdoor dining during a public health order that restricts or limits indoor dining at Patterson's Pub. The site is designated a Category 3 historic resource. The architecture has been ostensibly altered, but the basic structure remains discernible. Property is located at 10485 Lansing Street and 10501 Lansing Street. Presentation by Planner Walden, please.
If I may, through the chair, I'm going to defer to the director, as our office has been able to prepare a memorandum dated August 31st, and then followed by a second one dated September 7th. And so I'm going to defer to Director Carl.
Thank you, Julia Cross, Planning and Building Services Director. So I'm going to primarily speak about the updated memorandum, the one that was dated September 7th and was posted and made publicly available at the end of last week, and is available on the back counter if the public wishes to see it. During the July MHRB meeting, the board had requested clarification regarding the scope of what you could review. Was this permit from Patterson's Pub even right for your consideration? So staff consulted with County Counsel's office, and this is why the memorandum of September 7th is very important, because there was a bit of a snafu in our communication where staff produced a memorandum that later was determined to contain incorrect information from County Counsel's office. So after further review and consultation with the Office of County Counsel, Planning and Building has determined that this application, MHRB 2020-0012 for Patterson's Pub, can be considered by the review board, but it is a very narrow scope in terms of what this review board can consider. The review board can consider the term of the permit only. And so when I say term of the permit, I mean whether or not the tent may operate after the public health order. So if the MHRB chooses to extend this permit, I suggest that any motion specify the new term of the permit, whether that's 2 years, 3 years, in perpetuity. You would need to express that as part of your motion. The review board cannot modify the conditions of approval that are adopted as part of the project. So any extension that's granted to this specific permit means that all other conditions, other than the term of the permit itself, would need to be complied with. And I did attach a copy of the issued permit so you can review those current conditions. That's the second and third page to the memorandum. And I am happy to answer any questions that the review board may have.
Great. Planner Waldman, ready?
Yes.
Please. You're going to make, what was it?
Oh, no, that's complete our presentation.
That is, okay.
Yes, I'm sorry, yes.
Understood, okay.
Maybe.
Is applicant present? Mr. Tony Graham? And again, with all due respect, please direct your comments to the board and please do not engage with the audience. Thank you.
Did somebody leave their phone here, or is this?
That's a recorder.
Oh, okay. We've been through a lot in the last couple of months. As I understand it, we're only addressing the term, whether or not it's 1 year, 2 years, or whatever. We are not going to the merits of whether the tent should be permitted, period.
That's correct.
That's correct, because if I recall, in October of 2020, this board voted to approve the tent and that it complied with all of the conditions of the ordinance, in harmony with, not detracting from, not destroying something. So to that extent, I want to make sure that's clear. As far as the term is, and if you have a question on that, please ask me now.
We'll get to that. You make your presentation, please.
Okay. As far as the term is concerned, tomorrow morning, Supervisor Williams is going to be introducing legislation. Is this something that we should be looking at this moment? Because his legislation is looking to extend the term for the tents for another year. So what I see is a conflict of law here. You're going to discuss something and decide something, and tomorrow morning, literally 12 hours from now, the Board of Supervisors is going to be doing something else. I don't know how to resolve that in terms of my argument. So we've got, we've got a couple of avenues. Either we consider this on the merits, like the crossroads, or we decide to continue it and see what the board does and go from there. It's like the old Yogi Berra quote, the giant, or the Yankees catcher. When you come to the fork in the road, take it. I don't know which way we want to go on this. So let me just address the term issue. One of the conditions had to do with rainfall. I did a rainfall study the other day, which actually did surprise me. And this is in terms of the seasonality of the tent, when it goes up, when it goes down. We had, the last 12 months, we had rainfall every month, except for July. That was it. So if you look at the language of my condition, we've had the rainfall. So, quote unquote, yeah, the tent can stay up. The other one had to do with restricted indoor dining. The reason why I came to this board in the first place 3 years ago was if I had restricted indoor dining, there's no way I could survive. That's why I came to you for the tent, for outdoor dining. And there, in my permit is a condition that says that as long as there's a public health order, the tent can stay up. This last September, this last May, the public health order was lifted. Great, that's why we're here today. 1 month before that, literally April, 1 month before the health order was lifted, I applied to you for the extension, which is another condition in my application. Now the two crossed over, but so be it. That's why we're here today. As far as am I operating outside of the law, the press release from the county specifically said that once the public health order is lifted, I had 90 days to apply for a permanent permit. Once again, I complied. I applied on August 3, not August 9, I did it a week early, for a permit, and that is pending before this board. So things have gotten somewhat messy here in terms of the procedure that we're going to follow, given the supervisors, given my other application for a permit, and I could launch into a speech right now as to the merits of having the tent, but I'm somewhat hesitant to do so until we've kind of ironed out these other issues. As far as a couple of substantive issues are concerned, water, that's really not within your jurisdiction. You're not the MCCSD. But let me tell you, before the tent I was using X amount of water, after the tent I was using Y amount of water. Those two add up to less than 100 gallons per day of extra water usage for the tent. As far as this argument over grease, we have a big steel container that gets picked up by this recycling company that contains all of our grease. I mean, we're abiding by all the rules, and what, and Ian, you talk about civility. Some of these letters that are being written, anonymous letters by people saying things that are completely out of bounds in any public forum. And on another note, I wish the board and the county would address republishing anonymous letters as being inappropriate. We need the approximately 200 additional seats that provide outdoor, COVID-compliant, socially distanced dining. Why would a family who lives in Bakersfield, where it's 120 degrees, drive 5 hours all the way to Mendocino to have no place to have dinner? I mean, it makes no sense. Why would any B&B or hotel room in this town rent rooms to people when they have no place to go eat? And given that COVID is still mutating, and just read the Press Democrat, and there's the headlines, it's still mutating. It seems ridiculous to take the tent down, and then the county says, well, let's put it back up because we need outdoor dining and can't be indoors, and then we take it down and we put it up. I mean, that is just terrible, terrible planning. So I'd like to work with the Board of Supervisors, as Supervisor Williams has suggested, after tomorrow morning's hearing. I'm happy to work with the Sewer Board, happy to work with the Coastal Commission, happy to work with anybody to try to come up with a sensible solution to having COVID-compliant, socially distanced outdoor dining. I don't know, somebody may be too young to remember the writer Mark Twain, but he had a wonderful quote, and I'm going to edit it just a little bit. He said that the coldest winter I ever spent was a summer's day in Mendocino, over in San Francisco. But Mendocino's weather is not conducive to outdoor dining. It's either cold, foggy, rainy, and today was actually okay. But we need the tents as a way to provide COVID-compliant dining for not only our locals, but our visitors. And by the way, yes, the restaurants are finally successful. And guess what the revenue does? It sends money to 501 Low Gap Road to Ukiah to support this county. Without these 4 restaurant tents in town, there would be no dining. A lot of places have come and gone over the years, never ever to return. And if we want this town to be a vibrant, healthy, economic community, the tents need to stay up, at least for the next year, until we can figure out a better game plan. No, I don't. I mean, I had a permit for 2 tents. One in the driveway, one in the lot next door. The driveway tent was stupid. I mean, it really was. It just provided emergency coverage during the pandemic. But the tent on the other side does provide a quality dining experience. That's good for us, good for the community, good for seniors who have immune compromised issues. And what is the harm I mean, the harm isn't the water, the harm isn't the grease. It boils down to a few NIMBYs. We all know what NIMBY means. Who just don't like the tents and don't want to see them in their backyard. We all do our damnedest to keep them clean. It's difficult to clean sailcloth because it's fire retardant, and we have to be careful what chemical we use on it. We just can't pour bleach on the white tent. That'll destroy its integrity. So, yes, we're doing our best. It's like the Golden Gate Bridge. We start on one panel this week and do the next panel next week. And we rotate around.
So could I ask a
Sure.
timing question?
Sure, please.
Of the applicant, and this is sort of staff as well. You articulated, which I think a lot of us are wondering about. I, in fact, emailed staff to be like, so the Board of Supervisors is tomorrow, and we're hearing this tonight. As the applicant, would you prefer us to postpone this? And
Well,
so that's one question. That's one question.
you're giving a Yogi Berra quote. You're at the forks of the road. I'll go either way. I mean, if you want to continue it to another date down the road, that's okay with me. If you want to debate the merits of the case and the findings of fact right now, I'm prepared to go either way. It's entirely up to you.
So my question for staff is, would we have the ability, I wasn't here last time, so would we have the ability potentially to postpone it again?
So if I could sum that up.
Yeah.
How many continuations do we have in our belt, in our pocket?
There's no limit to the number of continuations you may wish to do. However, it is always recommended that if you think that this is something that you don't think you're going to address in the near future, or additional revisions need to be made or something, which isn't really the case with this, but you could also continue it to a date uncertain, and then it would come back at a future time. But I think with this particular application, my recommendation would be to a date certain, since it's asking to extend a term of what would otherwise be considered a permit you've already acted upon.
And it seems as though the cart before the horse concept it'll be resolved probably tomorrow at some point.
Well, I
We'll
think
come to a decision.
I think I should be clear too, the board is considering an extension, a 1-year extension on deprioritized enforcement related to tents. Applications for individual tents are still going to have to come forward at some point in the future. So it is really two separate issues, but I do understand how they're related. So I just wanted to make sure we were clear on what those two different approaches are.
So I just want to clarify for the applicant and for the public, that if we were to find not in your favor, there would be potentially what do you call it? You could protest that, but that would also be, that would also.
I go through the appellate process, yes.
Right, whereas, I suppose if it went in your favor, then that the permit would be approved. But if we continue it, we will at minimum have more information
Correct.
after tomorrow's business.
I mean, frankly, just looking at it from a layman's point of view, I mean, tomorrow there's a hearing. It would be like California legislature enacting some ordinance when Congress is meeting tomorrow to do something opposite. I mean, it's the classic conflict of law.
Oh, you had a question?
Yeah, I did have a comment, and, I think you've already stated this, but we're not talking about the general issue of whether or not we should allow for permanent restaurant tents in Mendocino tonight. We're not even talking about the issue of whether Patterson's should have a tent based on a new application. We're talking about the extension of a permit that expired some time ago now. And to me, we should have resolved this issue a long time ago. And I think we can resolve that issue tonight and then move on from that. I think there's no point in stalling on this as far as I'm concerned.
I disagree. Yeah, it's a conundrum, for sure.
Let me, if I may interject a moment, in my permit, there's a specific provision that says I have the right to apply for an extension, which I did in a timely manner 1 month before the public health order was lifted. I mean, I was perfectly legal in applying for that at that moment. Besides, I had behind me the county ordinance saying I had 90 days to apply for a new permit. So, I mean, I was faced with the same conundrum that Ian brings up. I was faced with both, so I did both. I applied for a new permit and I applied to you for an extension. If there was a third alternative, I would have done that too.
Okay, so we do have to abide by the agenda, I believe, unless we make a, we have to have a public hearing, right? There's,
No.
so, have you finished, Mr. Graham?
Yeah, I am. I just want to say, COVID's here to stay. We all know it. If you just look at the CDC stuff, we're going to be dealing with this now over this next year. And these tents are a solution. And to expect restaurants to pull up tents, pull them down, put them up, pull them down, is an extraordinary burden, financially, emotionally, and politically. So if we can all kind of come together a little bit and get a game plan, and that's why tomorrow's supervisors meeting is so critical. Because then we can go in the direction of water, sewer, and all of the public works, parking, and all of the ancillary issues that need to be discussed in a reasonable venue and a reasonable format to hopefully come to a solution. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. At this time, let's see, we're going to open up a public hearing. And we're going to finish that, and then the board will have questions of staff and our applicant, and then we'll make a decision on the application. So we welcome participation in the meetings. If you'd like to speak on this application, please use the podium. Please state your name for the record. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person. Please, again, do not engage. Regarding engaging with the public, your comments are to the board. Staff will announce when you have 30 seconds remaining. Thank you. First person like to speak, please.
Hello, board. How's it going? I recognize some of you because I've served you at Patterson's, and I've known some of you a really long time too. About the tents, I think I heard some people against it. I haven't really heard the people what they had to say against it, and I think some of it's very opinion-based about how it's not providing jobs, because it is. We have like double the staff we used to have there, and I know Good Life has doubled the staff too. And then they also said, oh, no businesses closed down during COVID. I know a few businesses that closed down. Maybe they weren't restaurants. Moody's, my favorite coffee place with the best espresso, gone because of COVID, because their landlord would not give them a break. And it just sucks that this is even a thing. And I wish people, I feel like what Monica said earlier about, oh, the people that have lived here for 10 years, that are retired, that have their money. Maybe like 5 people don't like the tents. Maybe 10 people. Oh, it's their backyard. It's like maybe they should have retired in Florida. You know, like maybe they shouldn't have retired in Mendocino. Because they don't own the town. And them saying, oh, there's nowhere to park. I started Patterson's 14 years ago. Every summer, it's hard to park. 14 years ago, it was hard to park. I have to find parking to go to work at 5 o'clock over 10 years ago. It's not a new thing. You know how we always say, oh, I don't remember this. Like, our memories forget. It's always this busy every summer, every 4th of July, every holiday.
It's always busy, it's always hard to find parking. I think people just want something to pinpoint and blame it on. And a lot of people that maybe are retired and have money and have an income, and I think a lot of them need to get a hobby. I think they need to find something that's fun, that feeds their soul, instead of complaining and finding things to complain about that are negative. Like, I feel sad for those people. They need to find something that makes them happy, instead of trying to tear down the way we're feeding our kids and our community and our families and paying our bills, you know? Everyone I know right now, even with extended seating, has to have like 2 or 3 jobs. Whether they work in Fort Bragg or Mendocino, like they have to have 3 jobs to make it by. So if like all the tents were gone, like I don't even know how half of us would find another job. And it sucks, and it just sucks. And I don't know what else to say. I just want you guys to know that I appreciate you keeping Starbucks out of Mendocino and keeping it pretty. And you guys do a really good job. But I wish that you would just consider keeping the tents so that we can all feed our families and be able to live and pay our bills.
Thank you. Name for the record.
Liz Hetherington, no A in my last name.
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Lamb.
Hi, here's your lamb. I feel like Tony Graham said it correctly when he said that tomorrow, and this is unusual, that the Board of Supervisors is actually going to be meeting at St. Anthony's Hall. So they're coming to us. It's not like anybody has to go over the hill to Ukiah to meet with the Board of Supervisors. They are coming here. They've published the agenda, which is available online. And they have, I have been in touch with our 5th District Supervisor Williams, and he has indicated that they will be making some kind of decision whether or not it's keeping the tents for a year, as Mr. Graham mentioned, but keeping the tents for a year. And so I feel that since the Board of Supervisors is the one that appoints the Mendocino Historical Review Board members, that whatever their decision is might override your decision that you make tonight anyway. And so I feel that Mr. Graham's request for continuing this item until after the Board of Supervisors meeting, which is at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, it goes 9 to 5, 10 to shoot first, is the right decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the back row? Can you please state your name for the record?
Tom Tetzlaff, T-E-T-Z-L-A-F. I can be quick here. I think all of this is just another layer of government that's just unnecessary here. Look at the people, the time, the paperwork, the lawyers, the fees. All of this is unnecessary for a simple tent. The county's gonna do their thing, the Board of Supervisors is gonna do their thing. That's it. You don't need to do anything. Consider that the best plan is no plan. Less government is more. Thank you.
Thank you. Back in the corner.
Kelly Ryan. I just have one clarification. I'm a little confused. Are we discussing an application that Tony Graham put in that requested putting a tent up and then putting it down and then bringing it back up? Is this correct?
Over here, Pete.
Okay, well,
So,
can I get an answer?
so what's on the table tonight for everyone's edification
Uh-huh.
is that Mr. Graham, in his original application, one of the conditions was to provide an extension if requested and approved. We heard from Director Krog that there was consideration because the last meeting was here. There was a request to have, from the applicant, to have the application extended 2 years with different conditions, specifically to leave the tent up year-round as opposed to the conditions which stipulate going up November 1st, coming down May 31st.
So
The
which
county council, lawyers for the county said that the application to have an extension has to be under the conditions of the original application.
Which are?
To put the tent up November 1st and have it down May 31st.
Okay.
So that's all that is on the table. And so what we're trying to do tonight is hold a hearing, allow the public to speak, and then we'll have some determination, as we've all noted, the Board of Suits is meeting tomorrow. So it could, if we approve the application, the extension of the application, it could be rendered null and void again for a year. Meaning the tent and all the tents in town could stay up for a year if that's what's decided by the Board of Supervisors without penalty and without code enforcement. So specifically what's on the table tonight with Mr. Graham is to extend the original application under the original conditions. He's requesting a 2-year period. Does that clarify?
Yeah, put the tent up and then bring it down and put it up and then bring it down.
If it's
That's
two,
the
if
original permit.
it's for 2 years, it's to put it up November 1st and bring it down May 31st.
Okay, because I heard some things that were confusing. I heard Mr. Graham himself, I think, didn't want to put it up and down and up and down. He thought
That's
that was-
correct. You want an application of you want an extension of the original application with different conditions, which we are not able to do legally.
Okay, so that's all moot points, what he said about this. We're just determining whether to continue it for a year or 2 or whatever length.
We're
To
gonna,
bring it up and down, up and down.
we're gonna discuss whether we want to approve the application,
Right.
deny it, or continue.
I understand. I just want to make sure we're clear on what the application.
Thank you.
I
I
think we're
appreciate
clear.
that.
Thank you.
Thank you for giving me the time to make that clarification.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else from the public wishing to talk? Is that Colin back there?
Yep.
Yes, please come forward.
Good evening, my name is Colin Morrow. I'm counsel for Patterson's, but I also live in town, run business in town. And it's a simple fact that there aren't enough restaurant or dining seating spots in this town to support the locals and support the tourists. A vote to take the town, or take the tents down would keep me from going out most evenings and being able to eat out somewhere, get a drink somewhere. I'd just be spending money at Harvest Market and going home. Similarly, taking the tents down means that a lot of people that come up here are going to be eating takeout at their hotel rooms. And they're not going to come back after doing that. No one wants to drive 3 hours up from the Bay Area to do that. And that might not sound like a historic preservation issue, but it is. Because without a vibrant economy up here, there is no historic preservation. You need money for historic preservation. And if you look at the purpose of why there is Mendocino Historical Review Board in the county code, it speaks to that directly. It's section 20.760.005. Among other things, it says, the Board of Supervisors found the preservation of many buildings representative of early Northern California architecture within the town of Mendocino is essential to the economic and cultural development of Mendocino and to the economy of the town and the county, which is in large measure based on tourism and visitors who've been attracted to the town in substantial numbers. If you pull up the drawbridge, so to speak, after people have come here, found their places and retired, the town's just going to wither on the vine. So I encourage the board to keep the tents to serve the purpose of historic preservation. In addition to that economic reality, I did also want to pass along a few photographs I found that stored into the tents on the communities locally. So you will see that it is something that is historically consistent. I hope that those could be added to the administrative record for this. In fact, the board's already found that the tents are historically consistent and found that back in 2020. And because the past is fixed, that decision's really been made. It's not the board's job to really need it.
And 30 seconds, please.
Just briefly, on a couple closing remarks, speaking to Mr. Ross' interpretation, 2 things on timing. I would encourage the board to decide for themselves what powers they have to extend the term of the permit. Condition 15 says the board's reserving an ability to extend the term. And I would encourage the board to read that as not only extending it into the future by years, but also extending the term to embrace the full year. There's also language in condition 16 about the first rain event allowing the tent to go up. And there has already been a rain event this year, so the board does have that power to keep the tent up for rounds. And I would hope that they do, because it's hard to be at a table in summer. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing
Can
to
I
speak?
just add to what you said?
We're going to have everyone speak once, please.
Okay.
Sir?
Steve Gomes, local resident. This isn't about restaurants making money for their owners and how bad all that is. They talk about parking. I don't have any problem parking here. If I have to walk a little further, there's always a parking space in this town somewhere. But the town of Mendocino entertains the world. It's not about us always. The character of this town, it looks to me like the existing homes that are actually have significant historical value are being protected. I mean, the owners of those buildings certainly would do that because that's the value of the property. So I think that, getting a little heavy-handed on regulations, has actually brought about complaints in the public from, thinking that, well, this board here's been heavy-handed on regulating, tell them everything. So we have, 63 complaints since the last meeting or this year. I mean, this is just too much intensity on what we're really doing here. New life and jobs and excitement are good for us and the visitors. The town is not a museum piece. It's going to change. It's changed since I remember it over 60 years ago. And, I support every effort to preserve the existing historical significance of this town. But the Coastal Commission requires that the public, the state of California, our fellow citizens, has access to coastal enjoyment. So these resources should be adequate, and that includes restaurants and hotels. And as far as there's a conflict here between what you can do tonight, which I hope you will make a finding tonight, and my suggestion is that these tents remain in place. And in perpetuity, well, as long as the permittees maintain their properties properly, and none of these tents become a nuisance, which would be handled by that process. And so what I would like to see the board do tonight is make a motion to recommend to the board of supervisors to join in them to let these tents stay up in perpetuity. That sounds like a long time, but if they're maintained and they look good, I think they do. I don't think they, in fact, this board made a finding back in October 16 of 2020 that the exterior that the exterior appearance of the two tents is in harmony with the exterior appearance and design of the adjacent structures. What's different today? Nothing. I think that they should remain, and I think that encourage the board to use the same motion that you do today, tomorrow, to get this over with. We don't have to have all these people. Let's see how it goes. I mean, if it's a nuisance, you got control. Thank you very much.
Anyone else wishing to make an expression? Hold on a second. Anyone else? Okay, so you're going to be the last speaker, and if you can keep it brief.
I just want to add one thing.
Go ahead.
I just want to add to what someone said about how if there weren't tents, they would go to Harvest Market and get something and go home. It got way busy in town, way before COVID, where every single weekend night, us, Mac House, Menda Hotel when it was still open, everywhere had a waiting list of like 40 minutes to an hour and a half before COVID. Since we have the tents, and when that was happening, I stopped seeing local faces. They're like, it's too busy in town. Before COVID, before tents, people stopped coming in. Where once we got the tents, I got to see some of my regulars again, because they're like, there's somewhere to sit. I'm not gonna stand out front for a half hour and wait for a seat. So having the tents actually is, yeah, good for business, good on all these other levels, but it's also a way that us locals can go out to eat as well. And that's all I wanted to add.
Thank you. All right, with that, closing public expression, bringing it back to the board.
May I?
I think,
I'd like to kick it off.
I think Holmes had his hand up before.
Sorry.
Gotta be quicker, I'm not.
Well, okay, I'll wait.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to stress that again, the only thing we're addressing tonight is whether the 2020 permit should be extended. And at the last meeting, I had argued that since there is no current public health order, the permit has expired and cannot be extended by this board. And I requested the staff to look into the issue with the county council. And they've done that now. And council has determined that the request for extension of the permit can be considered by this board. Okay. However, and it's a big however, this board cannot modify the conditions of approval adopted as part of the permit. And the property owner would need to operate the tent in conformance with all adopted conditions of the permit. Now, that means that in view of conditions 2, 14, 16, the tent would only be permitted during the existence of the public health order, which does not exist, and then only during the rainy season. Given this interpretation by Planning and Building Services and County Council, any extension that we grant would be a nullity, in my opinion. And therefore, I would not be in favor of granting such an extension. I would also like to wonder why we've gone through this exercise in frustration for as long as we've done. Why haven't we just received a permit request for the 4 restaurant tents that are in existence and examined them on a case-by-case basis? I think that we would be much further along in this process if that had been the case. I also want to address the letter that we received from a group calling themselves Mendocino Town Residents, in which they raise a number of issues with the existence of the tents. And I think there are a lot of relevant issues there, but as Ian, as you mentioned earlier, it strikes me that the concerns that they've expressed fall into the responsibility of Planning and Building Services, the Coastal Commission, and the Community Services District, not this board itself. So our responsibility is to determine whether the tents are harmonious with the historic district and consistent with the design guidelines. And I look forward to addressing that issue once we receive proper permit application, which we have not done. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, please.
So I think it's obvious that there are strong opinions on both sides, and one side may outweigh the other. So whatever we decide, we're probably going to make some person or group of persons unhappy. And the Board of Supervisors is a route for escalation, and they're meeting tomorrow, so things may change by tomorrow. So we're kind of in a bit of a dilemma from that point of view. But this is about the one permit, right? And really, we're talking about, as much about eating outside as we are about tents. So if a restaurant decides to have umbrellas and propane heaters and blankets for their customers to keep them dry and warm, that's outside of our purview unless the lighting gets, really, really expensive. So I think what we could do, and I talked to staff about this, and they can correct me if I'm wrong, is we could extend the permit for 180 days. After that, it becomes, as Captain said, a method of, it has to go to building and planning, because we only have 100, we can only do temporary permits in 180 days, that's it. Beyond that, it has to go into building and planning anyway. We could do that, and wait and see what happens with Board of Supervisors, and with all due respect to such bodies, there may not be an answer tomorrow. It may take a while. So, particularly with the emotions that are running at the moment. So, I think what I would suggest is we either continue this, or we would extend the permit for another 180 days. Those would be my two options.
Thank you. So I think we can extend it for a year. I don't see why 180 days comes into play.
Because of the building and planning.
Yeah, but we have an application in front of us that can be extended indefinitely, is what they're telling us. And they're gonna run into the issues that are out of our purview. Most of the discussion tonight has been out of our purview.
Exactly.
And I think that it's clear to me anyway, that tents don't have a long-term historical place in our town. It's also clear to me that we do need additional dining facilities and space in this town. And those issues are gonna have to be addressed by Board of Supervisors and Planning and Building, how they're gonna deal with lot coverage, water and sewer, etc. I'm in favor of allowing the tents to continue while those larger issues are addressed by Planning and Building, and in what small capacity we have, not being a hindrance to those businesses' ability to provide what I see as a vital service to our town. So I'd like to grant them an extension of a meaningful amount of time so that hopefully the other agencies involved can actually come to their senses and begin to address those other issues that we have to have addressed. So I would be in favor of granting an extension for a year. And I don't really see why county council is telling us we can't modify the condition that says it has to come up or down if we're modifying a condition that says we're granting an extension even though there's no health emergency. So it seems somewhat counterintuitive, and I think that we should take county council with a large grain of salt and grant what we think makes sense, because county council are just human beings trying to interpret a bunch of gray area, as we all are.
So let me comment back to that. And I actually agree with what you're saying, particularly about the businesses. And I chose 180 days because, as I understand it, beyond that, they need building and planning permission. So 180 days gives time for, one, the Board of Supervisors to sort itself out. Two, it's kind of inside our purview. And three, it kind of allows some time to go and talk to building and planning. That's why I chose 180 days. Sorry.
Yes, please, that's it.
I think I can add some
Can
very helpful
you
clarification.
clarify the 180 days?
Well, so let's just pause for a minute to talk about what status all tents in the town of Mendocino are in right now. Tents in the town of Mendocino that have filed a Mendocino Historical Review Board permit are able to continue operating that tent until that permit is decided upon. And then they have to comply with whatever that decision is that's reached. You have had several applications filed within the town of Mendocino. So right now, all of those tents are legally able to stay up and operated. Until a decision is made upon those follow-up applications. So there is no enforcement happening of those today.
the board considers tomorrow a possible year delay on any enforcement related to tents, with the idea to have a more coordinated approach to looking at how tents are constructed. Part of that is an NHRB approval. The other portions of that are things that we've heard discussed here tonight, NCCSD, our office, building permits, etc. But so I want to be clear that if you say no to a term extension on this permit tonight, that tent is still legal. It is still able to operate. There's no reason that it has to come down.
And that would be for a period of?
It is until that NHRB permit is decided upon. That follow-up NHRB permit that was submitted could conceptually be up to a year. It could be more than a year, to be quite honest, depending on where that, if the board agrees to a coordinated approach and whatever that coordination may look like. So I just want to make sure it's clear also to clarify that Mr. Graham has 2 applications currently filed.
Yeah, clarify that for me.
The one that you are looking at is the extension of that previously issued 2020 permit only. And there's a second MHRB permit that has been filed, which would be coming to you like any other application for your consideration and action upon it. So
So am I mistaken about the 180 days? then?
So the 180 days is for when a building permit is required. However, all tents that are currently operating in conformance with the urgency ordinance, today they're not required to come in for a building permit as long as they're diligently trying to pursue and get legalized. So 180 days is what, if somebody had a tent and only wanted to erect it for 180 days at a time, they would be exempt from needing a building permit. They could have a MHRB permit that allows them to operate it in perpetuity, but if they only had it erected for 180 days at a time, they would not require a building permit from our office.
So what you're telling me is that if we vote to, for example, say a year's extension, that the tent owners do not have to go to building and planning and cover lot coverage and water and everything else?
They still are, they're already in the process of doing
And I
that.
understand that, but my question is, do they have to do that?
They will, to be able to be fully legalized, yes.
Okay, so that's why I put a limit on it, because I felt that was long enough for them to go and do precisely that.
Which is why I'm suggesting that we should be looking at the new applications, and new permit applications, and not looking at this old one, which can't continue to exist because the conditions don't exist.
And if I may, I think at this point, at least staff's recommendation is that the only way for you to be not looking at this application is to make a decision upon it.
If we vote no to extending this application, if we decide we don't want to extend this application because it requires them to take the building down, up and down, or because we don't want to extend it for any reason, his tent's still going to stay up because he can keep his tent up as long as his application is in place for the permanent application.
Until we hear it and make a decision.
So maybe we should ask the applicant if he thinks it's actually in his best interest, because my understanding of this is that it would be in his best interest for us to deny this application so that his other application can stay in place.
Yes.
Because his other application doesn't require him to take his tent up and down, and this one does. Is that right?
That's where I am.
Or am I wrong?
Well, that's good. Ms. Magical has not, go ahead. And then we'll say things, she wasn't here the last thing, so I'd love to hear your thoughts, please.
I'm mentally trying to find solutions and counting votes, honestly, in my head. I tend to be of the side of, we all acknowledge that, long-term that these will not enhance the historical character of our town, but that the consensus is that it really is assisting the business community and the health and safety of our residents. So I was leaning towards the year extension, but I would be interested to see what the applicant would prefer, and I'm very interested to hear what the supervisors decide tomorrow, as far as direction. So I could kind of go either way. I do make an effort, however, to find solutions, and I've been speaking to the people in the community, to get to your comment. I think the reason why, these permits have, taken so long is because I feel like the applicants have not gotten clear information, like, this is what you need to do, this is what the board will support, and so I think that there has been a lot of frustration, frankly, because of that. And we don't understand everything that we're allowed to do. I am having conversations in the community, and I appreciate the suggestions that were put forward. The people who do business here also want our town to be attractive and welcoming. And so I think many of them would be very interested in doing a more permanent structure. We already have approved a private greenhouse, a Victorian-style greenhouse in the village limits. It's not built yet, but that's been approved. I think there's just a desire from the business community to have clear communication on what will be accepted. So I would love to hear what the applicant thinks would be best, and then I'd be willing to support one of these suggestions.
I'm not going to take the last swipe at this. This is about as clear as mud. I don't like the concept that we're dealing with something that's very fuzzy, which is an extension to an application that was put in a very different time. When we unanimously approved the initial application for Patterson's, we didn't know which way was up or down. I can't feel that we made a clear statement that tents are or are not in harmony with the historic district. I think what we did do was, as a gut punch, we wanted to support our business, and we took a leap of faith. And we decided that it's the best of the community. And I do know clearly that lodging without food, without retail, you need all three of those to make this work. Lodging without restaurants doesn't work. I mean, we saw it during the pandemic. People came up for the day. They didn't go shopping, they couldn't go into the restaurant, they couldn't spend the night, so they went to the beach, they had fun, and they went back home. So it's clear that the three legs of the stool all need to operate together. I personally, and especially knowing that Mr. Graham put in an application separate and fresh from this one, I would love to start fresh and not have these crazy conditions miring things. I feel if we act upon an extension of a permit that talks about health orders that don't exist and talks about these other things that don't exist, I think we enter into a legal liability. And it becomes a fight between an individual and the county. And I don't think the county can afford that, nor do they want to. So at this point, I would love to say, Mr. Graham, thank you for your application. I would be in favor of denying the extension to hear a brand new one with the conditions that he wants, so he can make a clean decision on that rather than chasing after this thing that happened when nobody knew which way was up. Those are my thoughts. And I see Mr. Graham standing up. Would you like to address us?
Please. Let me offer up a suggestion. We've got competing forces going on here. Your assessment that things are as clear as mud is absolutely correct. May I suggest, there's a concept in law called joinder or consolidation, that this particular process be combined with the application I just filed last August, and they be joined together and heard together.
I think it's still clear as mud. I don't think that clears anything.
Well, the only application of August just supersede this application. How is this application going to add to the application for August?
Because this board made certain findings in October of 2020 that are relevant to this tent. Ian just mentioned that, you know, it was kind of a moment in our pandemic history that the findings were that the tent does conform with the historic ordinance. You know, I mean, I understand we were all in a very, very dramatic, stressful moment, but, you know, the language could have been put in the permit that said, well, we're doing this, but our fingers are crossed, or we're doing this, but we really don't believe it. You know, those findings are there.
So can I make you're an
Sure.
attorney, I'm not. Trying to join the two doesn't make any sense to me. But as an attorney, I'm sure you can climb back and say, hey, this is my new application, it's pretty clear, and you made findings before, and I think that that's a valid argument for you to make. But I personally don't want to put the two together. I think we just need something clear going forward, fresh.
Yeah.
And if you want to put forth the argument that, well, unanimously you approved this one, I give you that, I mean, you have the opportunity, I can't give it to you, you have it.
But if you're willing to stipulate it, so we don't have to deal with it down the road, I don't think that's where you're gonna wanna go.
No, I want a clean restart with the facts that are about today and not 2 years ago. And it's not saying that it wasn't significant what we did, but I think it comes up the whole issue, and I don't think you're gonna get consensus out of us with that tagging on behind. If you've already taken money and put it on a new application, ditch the old one. Let's just start fresh and deal with it. And you have the other people in this room who also have applications in. So you're not going to be standing alone. And frankly,
At this moment, I'm fighting for the other 3 tents in this.
well, it's your application. And as I stipulated before, and I think I was supported by other board members, I want to be the last one in line. I want our board to be the last in line. I want to make sure that those who have tents, as well as any other project that comes before us, that they've jumped through the hoops of all the other regulatory agencies before we say, oh, it's aesthetic or not, or it's part of the design element or not. I mean, that should be the last step.
Well, those are the protocols. It's up to you folks as to how you address that. Answer those questions before it ever comes to you. Or maybe it's the other way around. I don't know.
The problem is, and this is what is going to be discussed at the board of supervisors tomorrow probably, is we need to get our ducks lined up so that applicants really know how to proceed. If we have an application in front of us and building, and building says, that's nice that MHRB approved this, but it's not to code and you're going to have to switch it around.
Yeah.
Then that has to come back before us again.
Sure.
So I don't want to be put in that position, and I don't think any of us do.
But either you're first in line or last in line.
It doesn't make any sense to be first if what you're proposing can't be done by the other regulatory agencies. Why are we even making a motion or a decision on that?
The reason is, Ian, is because from the other side, it's completely unclear. It's unclear as mud, right? And so if you're trying to push something through a whole bunch of regulatory agencies, what you want is some assurance from anybody at any point in time that you're not going to run into a hurdle with this agency as you jump through the other hoops. So I think that we can simply say, we're going to extend this for 1 year. The other agencies are going to try to get their ducks in a row. His other application is also going to come forward. And let's leave it at that. There's no harm in doing so, in my opinion.
I disagree, because if we give the go-ahead for a year on this, and then we hear that other application, we could perhaps deny that, then how do you reconcile this application is approved, this is denied? It puts us...
If we deny his next application, then this application stands for 1 year. He has the assurance that he can have 1 year of his tent. That's what he gets.
I don't know that. I don't know the county council would be behind it, and frankly, I know that it's very gray, but it's their legal decisions that they make that we have to follow.
Right, and they told us that we have the jurisdiction to extend the term of that permit. That we punted it back last time, and they came back to us and told us we have the authority to extend that permit indefinitely, in fact. And we're putting a 1 year cap on it. And I think what we're saying to the business community by giving them 1 year is, yeah, come forward with another application, come forward with all of this other stuff. If that stuff doesn't work,
But
you still have 1 year.
If we approve the extension of the 2020 permit, the only way it has any effect at all is for us to delete 3 of the conditions that are in that permit. And we've been told by county council that we can't do that. So it just doesn't make any sense.
Can I make a, we're hitting 9 o'clock, I'm sure our bladders need a little bit of relief, plus the audience is probably going to clear up. I think if we're counting votes, I think we kind of have something that is, I'd like to call for a vote.
Well, we need a motion, but I have a question before that is placed, which is that if she hasn't made a motion, but if someone put forward a motion that was to deny this permit with the plan to deal with the next one, to start fresh on the one that's coming down the pipe after this board of supervisors, if that was the motion, still all the other tents are currently in compliance. Like, so, correct.
They're not necessarily in compliance, but they have the right to remain where they are.
Correct. Right. So if we deny this, that is still, I just want to clarify that.
It's denial of the specific application with the understanding that there's a new application in the pipeline as well as one from the other agencies that are applicants who have tents out. And in the meantime, they will be held harmless until sufficient decisions are rendered to either allow or disallow.
Got it.
Is that a motion?
I don't know yet.
It sounded good. It sounded good.
Julie, I just want to be sure, if for some reason they deny my application today,
No, this is the extension.
the extension today, my tent can stay up until my August application is determined.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And
So why not just join the two?
I would like to move that we decline this extension with the knowledge that the new one, the fresh one is in process.
Okay.
That's the motion.
Is there a second?
And I second that motion.
Okay. Motion and second. Roll call, please.
Wait, can I
One moment, please.
I think we're deliberating, we've done our thing.
I can speak to the
We just-
motion, sir.
We just want,
I want to speak to the motion.
I'm saying no. We need to move on.
Well,
Very
county
nice.
council, are you county
Everything's-
council?
No.
No.
There's no county council here? Okay. I can speak to the motion though. Go ahead.
we just want to clarify, so the motion is to deny the requested extension of the term of this permit, NHRB 2020-0012.
Makes me so nervous, because I'm in support of the applicant, but I think that that's what needs to
I
happen.
think it's really Mr. Grant nervous, because we're denying something and he wants to be really sure of it.
Yeah, I think it really sends the wrong message to the people, in my opinion, is that motion really sends the wrong message to all the applicants who are trying to weed their way through.
The other applicants are in this room, and they've been listening this evening, and hopefully they understood the entire discussion.
I just want to go on the record as saying, because I'm going to vote against that motion, and I want us to go on the record as saying that I think as a board, by denying this at this point in time, we're sending the wrong message to our business community, because we are actually obstructing their ability to maintain their tents unless they are approved.
No.
How are we obstructing their ability? Because they are now going to have to jump through, because
They have applications in, and they're gonna have to jump through regardless.
those hoops that have to be jumped through are much more extensive and difficult to get through than an extension to an emergency permit that they were granted. The extension to an emergency permit,
One.
this permit right here.
Yeah, because the other people, the other businesses that have applications in now never had one before. So they don't have the same circumstances about asking for an extension of a permit that was granted during a health order and wanting different conditions. They might what?
They might come forward asking for extensions.
They don't have an application. There's no extension to grant.
That's why I just put up the tents without any.
No, okay, let me explain Mr. Graham came forth in September of 2020.
Okay.
The only restaurant or someone who had a tent up that an application was put in process that we made a decision upon. No one else had a permit.
Okay.
The health order a month later basically said there is no code enforcement during the health order. So the other business owners that have tents never had an application. So there's nothing to deny on their part. And what we're doing is we're saying we're leveling the playing field because the other applicants were required by August 8th to get an application in. So Mr. Graham has his application in under that August 8th deadline. And the other applicants that are coming forward have the same deadline, so it's a level playing field and everyone is starting from the same point as opposed to conflating the whole matter with all these other conditions and requirements. It makes it even and everyone starts fresh and everyone has an application in.
And I only made my motion
To clean things up.
because I'm supportive of the business community and it's not going to impact those other applications.
None of us we're all in support of the business community. We just got to figure out how to make it work, and this is the one application that, thank you, sir, for putting it in. I really do appreciate that. But it's expired.
I don't want to be the fly in the ointment, maybe I do. But what I hear is I'm being penalized
No.
for the only restaurant in town to have applied for a permit.
No. Okay, so if I may, and then we're going to take a vote because we're done here. The other businesses that put their tents up had the ability to do so the same way that you didn't have to take yours down. Okay? So your condition that said you have to take it down, you could ignore that the same way that they could ignore putting an application in. So you have enjoyed the same ability to be non-conforming as the other now applicants. So we're resetting the clock. We're trying to eliminate all the confusion and just start fresh with this is today, this is not September of 2020.
You can't rewrite history.
We're not. We're not rewriting it. We know exactly what happened before, and so do you. You'll be before us arguing it. So with that, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, roll call. I have a motion from Polly Vanderbold, and it was seconded by Holm, Cutler, Allen,
Yes.
Holm,
Aye. I'm voting yes.
you seconded it, correct?
I second it, yes.
Thank you.
I
Is
thought
she
we were
Ohm?
voting already.
We could misheard you when I said home.
Oh, sorry. Is she Ohm?
No.
Sorry.
No.
Roth,
Aye.
Holm,
Aye.
and Holly.
One or two choices.
I'll vote no.
Okay.
I know.
Okay, so motion.
For the record, I have 3 yes and 2 no. And this is in support of denying this application.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Let's take a 5-minute recess. And thank you all for your time and your input, and we'll come back to work with hotel. All right, we're back in session. That was more fun than root canal, barely. We're going to do a slight change up. All those beautiful pictures, that's the hotel in Mendocino. Those 2 little pieces over there, that's Happy Beaujolais. So we're going to flip them real quick. So we are doing. All right, so this is,
9C.
all right. Agenda item 9C, MHRD 2023-007. Mendocino Historic Review Board application to construct a 68 square foot addition to the brick rebuilding of a Cafe Beaujolais. Build covering of existing deck and have wood framed windows to existing south elevation. This location is not listed as an historic resource. And we have planner Mark who's going to present it. Please.
Thank you. Mark Kaiser, planner on this project. As mentioned, this is an application to construct a 68 square foot addition to the brick rebuilding at Cafe Beaujolais, as well as a deck covering over the existing deck. I'll try to point this out because it's rather tiny. This is the south elevation. There's going to be an additional window to the east of the existing window, and it will match. The deck does cover that south part of the deck. Moving to the east elevation, we have the 68 square foot structure here that will be used for storage. There is an existing farm stand right now. This is paved, and this project will not add to lot coverage. There's some conditions in the staff report, such as the concrete footing of the deck should be concealed in a manner to make it more attractive. Other than that, I'm available for questions.
Thank you. Any questions, board? Go ahead.
I think there was just an idea of the site visit to also add a condition about putting wood around that pressure treated.
We're getting I think we can talk with the owner, Mr. Lopez, as well as Mr. Grimes, architect, but let's do your presentation. Go for it. You're up.
All right, Kelly Grimes, I'm the architect. Thanks for letting us go first. Do you have any questions? I mean, that was the presentation. He stole all my thunder.
So I would just add what I said, site review, if you guys would clad the pressure treated with redwood and paint the underside of that soft and black, I think the whole thing would look a whole lot better.
All right.
That's my only suggestions architecturally.
So we'd like to paint the plywood black. Can we suggest replacing the pressure treated post with 4x4 redwood?
Absolutely, that's even better.
Then we'd like to propose that then.
I think there's also a couple beams that are pressure treated. We should
I
probably.
didn't notice those, I tried, looking down a little.
So when you look at the pressure treated 4x4 is the mean beam, and that's pressure treated. And why do you replace that? But if we can make it prettier so it doesn't look like pressure treated, is what issues getting to.
Once you start wrapping it, I mean, it's just fake. It's fake. So if we want to start, wrapping things that are steel and stuff like that, making it look like redwood, I don't think that's the character we're going for in this town. So I think replacing the 4x4 post, painting the concrete black, leaving the 4x12 beam up on top is pressure treated that no one's really going to see. If they see it, they're going to see some brown wood. I mean, if you want us to take the whole thing down, replace that beam, then say so, but that seems a little bit excessive.
Yeah, I would suggest that. I think that replacing the posts is a reasonable solution. I think it would be nice to clad the beams on top if you so wanted to. I think that the Simpson hardware on the tops of those beams, the post caps, just like the post bases, they're not attractive to me. You're going to be adding knee braces as well. I think doing that redwood post would be sufficient because, like you said, the header is not that visible. But going forward, I think it would be nice to construct exterior stuff out of redwood.
All right. Any other questions for that? Public expression. Anyone wishing to comment on this project? Ms. Brown, say your name. And you can't be talking about cookies, it has to be about the project.
Hi, my name is Liz Hetherington, and I think it's a good idea to let the Beaujolais create more beautiful things on top of their already beautiful things that they've already created, because they do it very, very well, and I'm in support of it.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, any other public expression? Hearing none, we'll go back to discussion. I think we have a motion. Do you want to?
I'll make a motion that we approve the application with the conditions that the posts be replaced with redwood, that the knee braces are made of redwood, with the soft material painted black.
A second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second from Alm and then Kapler.
I would just mention, though, that I'm disappointed again that we're dealing with an after-the-fact request here. I don't think this should happen, and it's a shame. It's happened several times lately, and we need to take note of that fact.
And the clarification is that the roof structure says new on the drawing, yet it currently exists without having gone through approval.
What?
If I may say, we had a few customers slip, and it was a safety hazard, especially during the rain, especially when the majority of the customers were driven outside. So we felt like it was a safety measure, and that we needed to take action. That's why we have brought it to you now in a official manner. But we felt that need for safety was so important that we constructed it, and then, but I heard you, and I do think it could be noted, and going forward, we will bring everything to you before anything is built.
Thank you. With that, voice vote, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. You get clarification on that?
So, the motion is to support this MHRB application with the addition of conditions 14 as stated by Ishii Omen, his motion.
Which has to do with the redwood.
Redwood posts and knee braces and soffit to be painted black.
Yes. Good.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Which brings us to almost, we're going to the Mendocino Hotel application. We still have a quick matters from staff afterwards. So this is 9E. Case MHRP 2023-0006, CPH Mendocino Hotel LLC. Review board application for renovations to Mendocino Hotel, including demolition, replacement, a whole bunch of stuff that we're going to hear about. And Planner Kleiser, you're up again.
Thank you. Mark Kleiser, planner on this project. As stated, Mendocino Review Board application is for renovations to the Mendocino Hotel. This is address at 45080 Main Street. And if I may, what I'd like to do is just walk through all the points in my staff notes and point them out as they are listed here.
Sure.
So first item we have is existing demolition, of existing wood deck fence and concrete paving along Main at the entrance of the current Mendocino dining room, and that is in the front of the building on the west side. The site visit that was demonstrated, and that.
To your right, to your right, to your right, to
More.
your right, to your right, to your right, to your right. Right hand.
Here we go, right here. Yes, thank you. Number two is demolition of existing wood deck. Sorry, that was one. Existing brick and gravel paving at the side rear yard behind the hotel and the current dining room, which is in this area here. We have landscaping in the front and side rear yards again. Here, this is going to be both in potted plants and at grade. There's an existing lattice fence here at the north elevation that is going to be demoed and removed. Addition of pathway lights and uplighting in patio areas. So that'll be throughout the patio area that is in the south backyard. Demolition of the failing fiberglass roof in the solarium and the removal of the back wall. So this is currently the solarium roof extending the entire length of the building on the west side, and it will be removed, allowing this area to be an outdoor, and this will be replaced here.
Just clarification for anyone who's listening or watching. The areas that are shaded red are those items that are to be demolished and removed.
Correct.
And then next to it is the.
The gray, yes, the
gray.
Removal of the north window wall at the current dining. So that wall is currently here. That's going to be removed, opening up this area in the back of the dining room. Replacement of existing building mounted exterior lights, that is throughout the project. And we have examples of the lights right here that are proposed. New doors in the patio area as part of the relocated exterior. So those doors would be, there were some doors here and some doors here that would be entering into the new patio area. There will be a fire pit with redwood bench here as well. Reconstruction of the retaining wall in the west and north end, that's out in the garden area throughout here. And finally, the retaining wall to be constructed of redwood at height, and that again is here. Redwood steps to be used in transition from Albion Street, that would be here. And installation of 2 new skylights, which are on the roof. These will be visible if you travel way up Main Street. All these items, in fact, are visible at some point in some degree to the public, which is why they're here. And these will be along here on the roof facing east, right? Sort of angled east?
More on the western face.
Okay, and this side here.
Quick clarification, it's 6 new 2x2 foot skylights.
Yes, sorry, 6'2". And as I said, all these are visible from the public at some point. This development doesn't change the lot coverage. And there's been some conditions proposed, such as the material used in the patio should be dark gray in color just to harmonize better with the town. And that concludes my presentation. Available for questions, and I know we have the applicant here as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would the applicant like to present the project or any clarification?
David Hamblin, architect with Dimensional Design. I think Mark has done a great job of reviewing the list, so if there's any clarifications or things I can help explain further, I would be up for that.
Get something about the doors.
So there are two things that sort of came up on, 3 things actually, came up on our site visit. One was, we're going to check with the building department about ADA access from Albion Street.
Correct.
Through the backyard.
Yes.
2, which I was walking behind you when you brought this up, and that was a good point. The illumination of the skylights outward for the ambient night light. So I'm not sure that we can do much about it. It's kind of replacing light for light. Another thing is aluminum clad doors.
Okay. Yeah. So again, we brought the 2 items. One is the roof, which is truly like for like, exactly the same material. So we figured, brought it to you, but that seems to be within the kind of repair and maintenance. The doors, which were built in this, this project was remodeled in the 70s. These doors are basically from that date. They were replaced with metal doors at that time. Our proposal is to maintain the appearance of a wood door, but aluminum clad on the exterior for longevity, etc. So that's what we're asking. We consider that a like for like because it's wood clad metal, it's wood clad metal. But we didn't feel comfortable that we're going to do that without getting some kind of acknowledgement. So depending on the expense, if we were to go to wood doors, I'm sure that's possible. It may be not worth the investment based on what you can get these days, or it's going to all be 100% custom. So, I mean, the fallback is if we can't get replacement, it might be after pricing wood that we have to repair what's there, which leaves us with marble off the doors. So that's where we're thinking. So
How many doors face south? How many of the door replacements are on the south?
0. Well, no, that's not true. There's 2. There's these two on the deck, on the wrong side.
South side is the.
These are both south side. Yeah, here we go. Entry. There's two doors here. That's face out.
They're part of this.
Exactly. Right. And then the rest, there's a lot
On that side, yeah.
on the east side and then
Two, I think.
the west side. Yeah, back next to it as well. There's two corridors that go through the building and they represent on the front and the back, so.
So let me clarify, you're not just recladding the existing doors, right?
No, I mean,
buying new doors?
Ideally, yes.
Ideally.
Of some kind. Well, they need to be replaced regardless, or repaired. Repairing is not something we want to do. We also don't want to invest in a door that's going to fall apart again. So that's why we prefer to come back with a wood door with aluminum cladding on the exterior that would substantially match the appearance.
And which brand door are you proposing?
I think we showed an example of like a Marvin. There's some companies that have so-called historic profiles, and so that's what we'd be proposing.
So we didn't see any doors there with mullions, and everything was a single
I
line. You
think-
said there was some
Yeah, I
with
believe-
mullions?
Yes, and I believe those are, we didn't go up there because they're only accessed from internally, but on the third floor, we do have divided lights.
Okay, and do you think that that door company will provide you with a true divided light, or at least a simulated divided light?
Simulated, so there's varying grades of that, of course, so, they have different options, one of which is, they're all simulated, but one is applied to the outside, one's applied to the outside and the inside, and then one has a bar in the glass, so when you're looking at the window, it appears to be a solid, continuous.
Is that the one you're proposing?
Yes. Yes, and so what, there's no, if you're, how do I describe this? If you're gonna replace a window, there's nobody who makes divided light with double pane glass that I'm aware of. Because it's inefficient by the time you do that, and it's not structural. So that's why they all adopted this new way of doing it.
But I will say the ones that have the bar inside the glass as well as the applied exterior look pretty much like a true divided light.
Agreed, unless you
Unless
know
you
what
steer
you're
really
looking
close
at and
enough.
come up very close, correct.
But the ones that where it's just applied to the surface, you don't. So as long as you're using the models, for example, the bar inside.
So yeah, so from our standpoint, the question again is it like for like? Which means when you look at the guidelines, it talks about replacing like for like, it's not being acceptable. That's the judgment, I would guess.
I don't think that's the argument.
No?
No, because those are steel doors, and they're certainly not in compliance with anything that we've ever approved in this town.
Right.
I think the argument, a better argument, because I'm actually in favor of using clad windows and doors in this town. I think a better argument is, do they look historically accurate?
Right.
And to the most people, and should we be using old growth redwood anymore in today's age to build doors and windows out of? And I've made this argument a bunch of times, I've failed. But I think it's worth noting, because all of your windows that you're proposing, you have an elevation with a bunch of windows, you're proposing to do all those out of wood.
Right, the back, because
Repair.
those are,
No, but you actually have new
because
windows.
those are new, right.
You have new windows going in,
Right.
in the patio area.
Correct.
And those are all gonna be wood,
That's
true divided light,
and
and I'm assuming they'll be dual glazed, but that's up to you, obviously.
honestly, probably not.
Oh, really?
But yeah, that was.
That's up to you.
Well, yeah, we could do that. I think that's why we were looking at it from two different standpoints. That's brand new construction. And obviously fits with, if we built anything new here, it would have to comply 100%. And so we're going to wood, so that's what the standard says. But the other ones were, even though we would replace in kind the exact same thing with, different metal. But when was historic, that was done in the 70s, is that something Same goes for this, we're replacing this with exactly the same, and that seems to be okay. It's not very visible either. And so the same argument goes for the doors, which are already there, which you're replacing in kind, because they were replaced in the wrong, not in compliance in '74. So that's why the other, anything we did new, we totally understand it's gotta meet that. It's right in front of you, you can touch it, you can feel it, it's gotta match. I mean, you've got the front windows, we want that all to match and feel the same. So there was no question, we didn't want to try to show a Marvin window or, aluminum clad or anything like that instance.
I mean, I think the biggest difference is the plastic roof that you're proposing to replace. If you build a parapet, which you didn't address, but I think you should put a parapet on the, that would be your north elevation. I think if you put a parapet there, then that's going to address the concerns. I mean, I would have you guys think about putting a real roof on rather than plastic roof, just because I don't like plastic roofs. And I don't think you guys probably like plastic roofs, but I don't think it's very visible. So I think that's doable. And personally, I support using clad doors. I think it's fine. And so that's where I would fall down on these issues.
I got some comments once you get it done.
Good. And I think just if that's a sticky point, we would, but if everything else was alignment and was, approvable, then we would, say, okay, we'll stipulate this or that. Those doors, they have to be wood, unless I know there was last time, there was discussion that there was a discussion about that. If things change, we may, by the time we do the project, we'll submit another application or whatever.
Can you hold up on your comments? We can do public discussion. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask one question? You mentioned that there is an addition of pathway lights and uplighting in the patio areas. Uplighting? What are we looking at there?
So the uplights, so there are landscape uplights shown, like post mounted. These would typically be under a tree or a bush or a canopy, so they're not shining up on the building. That's not the intent.
I mean, normally we're looking for downlighting. So,
and that's, a landscape for architects not here, so, but that's, so everything else, I think this is the only exception. And we have them shown on our landscape plan. They're just kind of scattered throughout the garden areas. And then everything else, this is in the back patio. This illuminates the ground and is shielded. These lights, just so we're clear, these are on the exterior of the building. So these would be visible at level 1.
So I'd like to usually review it for landscape.
Right on.
Yeah, I gotta see if I have
Now, do any of your plant photos show?
Well, here, the uplight's the blue dot, so you can see there's literally 4 of them. And they presumably correspond with the tree.
Okay.
And they're aimable in 90 degrees, so. But.
Okay, thank you. Anyone from the public wishing to make a comment? Oh, sure. Mr. Brown? Been here all night.
Kelly Ryan, I'd like to celebrate these people taking on this monstrous project. And I do have a question though, if you take away this much roof, how can your lot coverage stay the same? It doesn't quite jive, but I totally support replacing this with the exact same thing. I think you guys are in a difficult position with replacing these steel doors. The steel doors are obviously not original. We're here as a review board to try to bring back the historical things and correct the wrongs that were done in the past. And if you support getting clad doors here, you've open the door, and trust me, there's gonna be a lot of them. Every one of my applications is gonna refer to this project. So these are not the original steel doors. I was surprised to see steel doors there. And good luck to you making this decision.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board. All of you have some questions?
It was more of a comment, which was to bring up the doors. Really, I think that, yeah, I think this is an ambitious project. I know there's lots to do, and it's really exciting to see this level of investment. I made the comment at the site visit that at a application just to the east of that, we came really close to approving, because this board has the ability to use our judgment, and we came really close to approving metal-clad windows on the back of the building immediately to the east. The applicant decided not to do it, for understandable reasons. I don't know if the votes were there, but I think it's worth considering using metal-clad doors in situations where it's not facing the street. This one has two, but the majority are facing another building. And if we replaced what was there, which is clearly metal-clad doors, I think it would be an improvement as far as integrating modern materials into historical architecture. But other than that, all the rest of that ceiling is fascinating in the garden room. But other than that, I think that was the only thing that I had questions about.
Anyone else? No?
Well, if there are going to be new doors, I'd like to see them have divided lights. I don't see why that wouldn't be possible.
Metal divided lights or wooden divided lights?
Pardon?
Metal or wood? Clad? No, reverse that. Wood divided lights or metal clad divided lights?
Divided lights, period.
You're dodging the issue. So to Mr. Grimes' comment, I make a comment I always make, but we do this on a one-by-one basis, and, we don't work on precedent, we work on opinion and an individual basis, so good luck, as you said, with that. I'm kind of calling where they're visible, I prefer to see wood and around the back, something that's a little bit out of plan.
I'd like to see a parapet on the north elevation above that roof. And other than that, I can support clad doors, but I think that, I don't know, if we've got the votes for, I don't know if everybody else has that, and if that's gonna hang up your application. It sounds like you're willing to go to wood doors if that's gonna hang up, if that's a sticky.
Yeah, if I could speak to that repair is kind of, it comes, sorry, thank you. Repair would not be covered under the purview of this board, would it?
Correct. How can you repair a steel door?
I know. But I'm saying that.
That's prohibitively expensive.
Yes, if it's prohibitively expensive to create this door that's going to last, we might try to repair them. Don't want to. So I don't know if there's a way to, well, one is if it's like for like replacement, which I don't know the exact verbiage of the guidelines, but if we fall under that, then you have to make a decision. Okay, but, or since we brought it to you, now you do.
I I don't think you can pull it out of your application, and like for like would be a steel door.
Okay,
Not aluminum
right,
flat,
but, sure, but if I did go with a steel door, you know, the coatings on those are more long-lasting, different, you know, different techniques for how that was coated, we could, that would be technically like for like. I mean, that's an option, you know. We think aluminum doesn't corrode, and et cetera, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think your argument's valid. I mean, we're allowing a plastic roof because it's like for like. So can you put steel doors back up because they were there?
Right, so like, if that could be considered repair, or if you install new doors that, I don't know how I would word it. You know.
So I'll weigh in my 2 cents because it's getting late.
Okay.
For sure, the windows on the south facing side, absolutely no question wood.
Windows or doors?
Yes,
Yes, okay.
windows and doors.
Windows and doors on the street.
On the street facing. The other ones, I don't want to do the slippery slope, but I like what Alan said is we decided we're not setting precedent, we're looking at each individual project. I appreciate what Ishvi says about why are we putting old growth redwood into some new stuff. I know that we're sort of on, we teeter on the edge with this decision. If it's not visible to the public and it looks like it does now, except not full of rust and falling apart, I could potentially live with it. Does that make it clear in the mud?
We're visible aluminum clad or not?
Well, in the south face,
Yeah.
wood only, period. But around the sides and the back where it's not, unless you're a guest or you're Snoopy, like we were, you're not going to get close enough to really see the difference. And I could live with that, as long as we understand that we're still doing a case-by-case basis. And no one's going to throw it in our face later on.
I do want to, really quickly before Kelly comments, I do just want to say that I'm not at all clear that the role of this board is to solve the problems of the past. I know that our job is to preserve the character of the existing historical landscape, and I certainly, I have had prior historical review board members tell me, you know, over and over again, like, we're not trying to be Disneyland, we're not trying to like cutesy up everything. There's a number of buildings that are quite unattractive that were built in a certain era that are not part of our historical purview. But I do think that we, you know, have a responsibility to maintain historical, you know, character. So like, that's sort of why this is one of those cases where it was, you know, where the parts that we're talking about, like, were done in the 70s. So yeah, I would be willing to support wood doors on the south facing, wood doors and windows on any south facing replacement. What was your name? Parapet?
Parapet wall.
And all of those, but allowing aluminum clad on the sides and back.
Can the staff weigh in on whether they're setting precedent with this ruling? Because it's not one-by-one basis, you're setting precedent. This is a category 1, the most historic building in town, and you're saying if you can't see it from the street, you could do whatever the hell you want, and that is setting precedent.
You didn't say you could do what the hell you want.
Well, you said you could put steel doors up. Never seen that before.
No, I don't think so. I didn't say that. I certainly didn't say that.
I think we're facing a situation where there already are steel doors, and so we're saying.
Then they don't need your permission to replace them with the exact same thing.
They don't.
Okay, so you guys should disqualify it, because once you make a determination, you're setting precedent. Please, staff, weigh in. Director, you're here.
Thank you, Mr. Grimes.
Do you want me to?
Yeah, please.
Well, so in terms of precedent setting, I will say all applications are different. So what is approved in one location may not be acceptable in another location. But I do think, to Mr. Grimes' point, This is one of the most historic structures in the town of Mendocino. It is a landmark Category 1 structure, so extra care really needs to be taken in any decision that is reached by the review board, because this is a structure that its construction dates are known, it is historically significant, and really changes to that structure are generally meant to be very, very minimal. So that's kind of the overall context.
So let me ask this question. If I heard correctly today, the southern front half of the building was built at one point, and the back northern part was built at a later date. Is that correct?
It's all Category 1, the whole building.
Thank you, Mr. Grant.
The whole building. You can't keep changing the
I
rules.
said thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Can I ask, how many doors are we talking about?
So I can say, in terms of date build, the only information we have is in Appendix 1 of the Mendocino Town Plan, which says Mendocino Hotel, built 1878, Category 1. And Category 1 is landmark, construction dated, history substantiated, only minor alterations in character with original structure. Or original architecture.
So I would have to assume that, hold on a second, that the front half of the building that was constructed earlier had original wood doors. And that sometime in the 70s, they were replaced with these metal doors. Because they didn't have metal doors back in the 1880s, right? So if we ask applicants to come back with wood doors, that would be bringing it back to a more historical restructure. Yes, Holly.
I think there's a lot to be said for wood doors with the guided lights and for all of them. I mean, this is a major project. I can't believe that, you know, having to replace a number of doors is going to kill the project.
So, I just want a little clarity on the fact that what we have there in this Class 1 historic structure is steel clad doors. That's what's, so if we're, it seems like if we're preserving that, we're not preserving the historical character, despite the fact that it's in a historical, you know, jewel of the building. I just like to put that out there.
So we're saying it was okay to do something wrong back then, is what you're saying?
And I think that by,
If you're gonna go to the trouble of doing this, you might as well put it back to the original state that it was in.
May I add a comment, just to bring it back, to bring it back to the standard. So 20.760050A, and I know this is just going to further complicate your thought, so I apologize in advance. But it talks about the size, forms, materials, textures, and colors shall be in general accord with the appearance of structures built in Mendocino prior to 1900. But it also is clear that this section shall not be interpreted as requiring construction to be with the forms, materials, textures, colors, or design as used in Mendocino prior to 1900, but only that the construction be compatible with and not in disharmony with the architectural standards herein expressed. So I just really encourage that you guys bring your discussion back to really thinking about how, not necessarily what material was used in 1900, but how the project conforms with the general architecture. Is it in harmony with the architecture of the building itself, its surroundings, etc.?
The evening of mud.
I think that's the point, that clad doors at any rate, in the modern world, make a lot of sense. And old growth redwood doors don't. And we're faced with this over and over. And if we want to require that we continue to use wood where it's visible to the street, that makes sense. And even to Kelly's point, so if we do set a precedent for people who are putting in doors that they can't see from the street to be able to use clad doors, to me it just makes sense. It's just like we're in a time that's different than 1900. And clad aluminum doors make sense to me. So, I mean, I would make a motion that we approve this project.
Don't do it.
I will. Okay, I make a motion that we approve this project with the addition of a parapet wall on the north end shielding the greenhouse roof, similar to what is on the south end. And
Can you explain what we're talking about?
Yes.
I think it's 10 doors.
So when you, where's the elevation of the other side of that?
There's the front is.
What are we doing?
So
Sorry.
it's this elevation, okay, so you see how this wall, this roof is cut, this wall is straight across?
Yeah.
And you can't see the sloped roof behind,
Right.
on the street side.
This is
On this side, currently, you have a sloped roof, you're seeing it.
Yes.
And what I'm proposing is that a parapet be built straight up like that
Okay.
to match the one on the other side, so that when you're looking at that elevation, you see
Okay.
flat level plane instead of that long sloped shed,
I can
and
vote.
it'll hide that plaster.
So curb cut on the north wall, hiding the plastic roof.
Yep. And that the south doors are made out of wood. All windows are constructed out of wood. The other steel doors can be replaced with clad aluminum. And that the uplighting not be allowed. I don't think uplighting is something we want in our
Against motion?
Well, to be fair, it did
Evolve.
evolve at the end.
All I just, whole motion? Okay, we're gonna approve it, Jesse. Ready?
We're trying to find out what it is like.
Parks, Planner Waldman, so well, there's been all this discussion, and I understand that you guys are discussing a motion, I do not want you to lose that thought,
Okay.
period. The code section that the director referenced does also mention some information about, to this end, they say shall be in general accordance with the designs exemplified but not limited to those depicted in the photographs exhibited, or the photographs contained in Exhibit B. So I have pulled B, and Exhibit B are 3 books. This is called The Town of Mendocino, and it has a list of all of the historical structures, and this book was printed in 1973, and it was copyrighted in 1986. There are a few pictures of what the hotel looked like originally, and then there's pictures of it after the 3rd story was added. I also am looking at a part of that Exhibit B that says Mendocino, past and present. And I don't know if what I'm adding is to complicate or to further enhance, but for the record, it's important to look at these exhibits that are referenced in our code. So I haven't had a chance to look at all of these appropriate pages. There are photos going around, I don't know what page number that is, that Chair Roth has now.
67.
The book called Mendocino. Here is another picture of the Mendocino Hotel taken in 1915.
No, 1970.
I don't believe so because the cars are not 1974 cars.
I think that picture.
And it is, I think it is maybe a car show, but this is an interesting one that is also very helpful, and it is on page 35 of the book called Mendocino Past and Present, and this is the hotel. It's confusing because in their 1954 15-4 on Main Street in 1974. So I want to bring that out, and there's a 3rd book, and I apologize if this wasn't.
Why are you using this one?
Because we're trying to look at the doors, we're trying to get a picture of what the doors looked like before.
And there are representations of what the exhibits have looked like, and that is what we have at the moment. So I think it's important to look at the historical content of the changes that have happened to the historical building, what the board's review scope is, which is the intent of historical preservation as stated in the Historical Review Board guidelines, And then there's the exemptions from MHRB approval, and there's the standards. And part of the standards reference these two books. I think it's important to look at those. And I apologize if that causes things to go backwards. And also before a motion is carried through, does the applicant understand that if changes are needed by the building department, you will have to come back and apply for a different Mendocino Historical Review Board permit? Okay?
Do you understand that?
Okay. Those two things I think are very important for the applicant to be aware of, and also just to remind everybody that there are design standards that are depicted based on history of what the board has approved and what was done prior to the board. Thank you for letting me complicate that.
Okay, things are getting late, and I like Ishbi's proposal. So I'm very much in support of the idea of the parapet wall, no uplighting, and wooden doors on the south only.
We're being silent about the rest of the doors.
In my motion, I'm saying they're going to allow flat aluminum doors to the rest of the doors.
Yeah.
And so if I have a second to that motion, that would be great.
So,
Wait, that out lights there.
No, we got rid of, I was saying, we restate the motion. No?
just a second. If, I'm looking for an out here. If maintenance and replacing like for like, those doors that are out on the south side are steel. If they're replaced like for like, then it's not under our purview, is that correct?
The code states specifically, there's two parts that are up, there's items that are up to the board. So there's the historical review board guidelines that say doors and window materials shall not be aluminum or steel. Then there's the section about the historical preservation 20, there's a chapter 20.760, which is your purview. And it states here that, nope, it is a standard. In the standard, it states, this section shall not be interpreted as requiring construction to be with the forms, materials, textures, colors, and designs as used in Mendocino prior to 1900. So it is saying that there is the concept, and you can pause me if I am completely wrong, but this is how you got to other materials other than wood on other projects. Is that there is the essence and there is the intent, but it says in the guidelines, it shall be this material, it shall not be this material, and in your preview, it says that you can do repair and maintenance to match existing, and that it shall not say you're binded.
So under 20.76004L exemptions under C, it says routine maintenance of existing structures where materials used match existing and where no alteration of height, dimensions, or exterior architecture of such structures will occur.
Which basically states that if they were to replace like for like, that is acceptable.
I would say those doors need more than maintenance.
Yeah, exactly. It's not routine maintenance.
And I say we see if the motion has support. I mean, and if it doesn't, or, I mean, you might want to make a motion to say that those items are a maintenance issue, but that is sort of abdicating our responsibility. I think on some level, it's abdicating our responsibility for the historical character.
All right, so I have a second for my motion.
Sorry, could you just clarify what the current motion is?
Okay, my current motion is we're going to accept the application with the addition of a parapet wall on the north end of the greenhouse with deletion of the uplighting in the landscape, with the clarification that all doors on the south side and all windows will be constructed from wood, and that the remaining doors, well, the application already asks for clad doors, so the remaining doors can be aluminum clad doors. There's no lights, there's no mullions, they're all one lights. That's my motion.
I'll second.
Okay. Second.
All right, can I make one clarification on the Richard?
Yeah.
Page 9 in the attachment, I just want to double check. That is not the Mendocino Hotel. That may have been inadvertently included in.
I was thinking that was an awful lot of green space.
There was a fire pit example there, and it is not referenced in my staff notes at all.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Strike that.
Thank you for clarifying, yeah.
That's the garden suites, correctly,
Right.
correct?
Correct. And so this was really simply depicting the same treatment of landscaping, you know, same palette materials. Again, we will strike uplights off that.
Okay, so we have a motion by Ishvi, a second by Alan. You guys got that?
Question, staff would like to ask a question.
Yeah.
In the staff report, there are conditions 1 through 11, and it skips condition 12. So I'm going to say that we have 4 new conditions as stated, which would have been 14, 15, 16, and 17. But the permit will reflect consecutive numbers, 1 through 16.
Or you could, we can just put it at 12 and say skipped over.
How are we going to do it?
That way it's consistent.
Staff can sort that out.
Yeah.
But for the record. Thank you.
All right, we'll call the vote when you're ready.
Ready?
Go ahead.
Madrigal. Yes. Allen.
Yes.
Ishby.
Yes.
It's Roth. Roth.
No.
And Holmes.
Yes.
So 3 for yes, 2 for no, with the condition.
No, yes.
4 to 1.
I was the only one saying it.
I'm sorry. This is why I asked for clarification. With the condition of adding 4 conditions.
Correct.
Yes, thank you.
By the way, I'm really happy to see that happen. That's a big job. It's going to be
Yeah,
whatever you do.
we hope to be the ones to put it across the line. Thank you so much.
All right, we have, so that passes. And then the last item we have on the docket is agenda number 11, management staff, the second part of that. I think there's an announcement to sign policy.
If I may, planning and building services is fully aware that the board had asked for revisions to assign policy. We are working on that. We have had a lot going on with scheduling. The draft is not complete to be returned back to you from the, I believe it was the June hearing.
And tonight was a rather full agenda, so usually not best to talk about something complicated.
We're bringing the signed memorandum back to you with additional revisions for your request, and we're just acknowledging that it is not at this hearing. You asked about it at the last hearing, issue, and so it's coming, it's just not here.
Is it gonna be on the next agenda? Because I mean, we canceled the last meeting, because presumably there was nothing on the agenda. And I think this is an important thing. I think the sheer number of sign complaints that we're seeing, you know, this needs to get sorted out. So I hope it makes it onto the next agenda. It's been over, what, 6 or 8 months now. So.
October.
All right,
We will try to do so.
so with that, I'm adjourning the meeting at 10:15, and